Chapter 4936. Okay. Xiao Hua took the storage ring and took out hundreds of crystals from it, placing them in front of the banished king. This is what Xinming taught me. The banished king was extremely embarrassed. He smiled apologetically. This cultivation method is senior's. Junior doesn't dare to take these crystals. Just take it when I tell you to, Xiao Hua said indifferently. However, in the future when you sell it, it must be one top-grade crystal, no more. Yes. The banished king was somewhat confused, but he still hurriedly took the crystals. Since the spiritual root selection method had been sold out, the cultivators who entered the Chonglin Pavilion should have left. However, none of the thousands of cultivators left. They all held their breaths and looked at Xiao Hua with rapt attention, as if they were expecting something. Strangely, every cultivator kept their mouths shut, not daring to open their mouths. Seeing this, Huan Xuan was somewhat helpless. He looked at the banished king and gave him a look. The banished king's mouth was bitter. He thought for a moment and said, Senior Zhang, Junior thanks Senior for giving the spiritual root selection method to the Heaven Alliance. However, Senior should also know that it's not enough to just have the spiritual root selection method without the spiritual root cultivation method. Junior heard that the Tao Alliance already has the cultivation method for Golden Core disciples. I wonder if Senior can give this spiritual root selection method to the Golden Core disciples. At this point, the banished king didn't dare to say anything more. He looked at Xiao Hua with a kind of pleading look. Oh, is that so? Xiao Hua slapped his forehead and said, This old man actually forgot about this. This old man has a set of cultivation methods suitable for spiritual roots to cultivate. It ranges from chi refining to great ascension. Who wants it? Ah. Everyone was silent. No one agreed. And no one dared to breathe a sigh of relief. The banished king only wanted a cultivation method to cultivate to Golden Core, but the cultivator in front of him, who seemed to only have the strength of nascent soul, actually took out a cultivation method to cultivate to Mahayana. Not to mention that this kind of magnanimity stunned everyone, but in their ears, these words sounded like a lie. Really? After a while, the banished king came back to his senses and shouted, Senior, this cultivation method. How many crystals do you want? As soon as he finished speaking, the banished king immediately regretted his words. He hurriedly corrected himself and said, Senior, this junior knows his mistake. If you need anything, please tell me. Senior. Illusory Swansea came to his senses a little too late and hurriedly called out, Senior, you can tell this junior whatever you need. Tong Lake City will definitely satisfy all of your requests. The exiled monarch and Huan Swansea opened their mouths. The cultivators below the bamboo platform were unable to open their mouths. At this moment, it was no longer a question of whether they believed Xiao Hua or not. Instead, it was a question of whether they dared to take this cultivation method or not. Call your city lord over. Xiao Hua looked at Huan Swansea and ordered, I'm afraid you can't make the decision. Yes, this junior will go and ask for the city lord's help. Actually, when Xiao Hua was blocking the attack of the Chonglin Pavilion's formation, Huan Swansea had already seen the disciples of Tong Lake City fleeing in panic. They must have gone to ask for help, but for some reason, the city lord still hadn't come. Huan Swansea quickly replied with a smile. Seeing that Huan Swansea had left, Xiao Hua looked at the cultivators on the left and said, I can't give you cultivation methods that can directly cultivate to the Mahayana stage. Otherwise, once you leave the Chonglin Pavilion, you will be hunted down by the disciples of Tong Lake City. How about this? This old man has a cultivation method jade slip that can cultivate to the late stage of the spirit severing stage. Each jade slip costs 30 top-grade crystal stones. Who dares to take it? 30 top-grade crystal stones? The group of nascent soul cultivators were dumbfounded. They didn't expect that such a precious cultivation method would actually only cost 30 top-grade crystal stones. Senior. Suddenly, a cultivator who was concealing his cultivation base and his true appearance shouted loudly, This junior needs a cultivation method that can cultivate to the late stage of the void refinement stage. Senior, can you sell it to me? Of course you can. Every cultivation base increases by 10 top-grade crystal stones. Xiaohua said with a smile and took out another jade slip. Damn it, I'll do it. That cultivator who was concealing his true appearance cursed in a low voice, before flying in front of Xiaohua and respectfully handing over a storage ring to Xiaohua. Senior, this is the thing that this junior wants to bid for the spiritual roots selection method. This junior didn't expect to actually be able to obtain a cultivation method for spiritual roots. This thing is all given to senior. Okay. Xiaohua took the storage ring and handed the jade slip to the cultivator, saying, You first check if it's real or not. After leaving the Changlin pavilion, this old man won't admit it. That cultivator was a little embarrassed, but he began to use his divine sense to check it. After a moment, that cultivator said with ecstasy, Thank you, senior, thank you, senior. After saying that cultivator didn't stay for a moment and rushed out of the Changlin pavilion. Senior. There were already cultivators rushing over and shouting. This junior wants a cultivation method that can cultivate to the late stage of the nascent soul stage. Xiaohua raised his hand and took out some jade slips, saying, This is a nascent soul cultivation method. Help this old man sell it. Yes, this junior understands. Fei Jun hurriedly took it, and then said to some other disciples, You all quickly come and help Senior Zhang. Xiaohua also gave some other jade slips to the disciples of Shenming sect. They were cultivation methods that could cultivate to the spirit severing stage, void refinement stage, and unification stage. Senior. Hongqing was a cultivator who was somewhat familiar with Xiaohua. Although he was afraid in his heart, he also knew that Xiaohua wasn't as strict as everyone thought. He gathered his courage and went forward with a smile. Senior, you are a little biased. How come all the cultivation methods can be used by nascent soul cultivators? Cultivators like us who cultivate primordial spirit are also Tao cultivators. Senior, you can't favor one and discriminate against the other. This old man is a nascent soul cultivator. Xiaohua looked at the fat monk angrily and said, So this old man has so many cultivation methods. What about it? You're not satisfied? No. Hongqing hurriedly smiled and said, This junior doesn't dare. This junior just wants to see if senior still has any cultivation methods for primordial spirit. How many top-grade crystal stones do you have? Xiaohua rolled his eyes and said, You can't even afford to raise a tyrannical tiger, and you still want to buy cultivation methods? This junior only has 10 top-grade crystal stones. Hongqing took out 10 top-grade crystal stones and said, I originally wanted to buy the method of selecting spiritual root today. If senior thinks it's too little, then I'll sell the tyrannical tiger to senior. With that, Hongqing waved his big sleeve and took out the tyrannical tiger. Who knew that the tyrannical tiger seemed to have heard something? As soon as it came out of the sleeve, it immediately hugged Hongqing's thigh with its 4 hooves, and its tail wrapped around Hongqing's calf. Its pair of eyes looked at Xiaohua pitifully, as if it was begging. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote a monthly vote a recommendation vote, collect a gift, and thank you for all kinds of support. Chapter 4937. Needless to say, Xiaohua's cultivation methods were naturally modified during the years when Demon Venerable Shi refined the blood evil spiritual pearl. After modifying the nascent soul cultivation method, Xiaohua also thought of the Heavenly Alliance cultivators who cultivated the nascent soul. He had obtained the nascent soul cultivation method in the upper realm, and even comprehended it while cultivating. Therefore, although modifying the nascent soul cultivation method was more difficult than modifying the nascent soul cultivation method, Xiaohua had modified it to the early stage of the return to void realm in these years. Only the void refinement and Tao integration realms were not considered to be perfect, so he did not modify it. At this moment, Xiaohua saw the group of cultivators who modified the nascent soul looking at him pitifully like the tyrant tiger, and he unconsciously made a decision. Damn it! Why is this spirit beast the same as Hongqing? Xiaohua knew that this tyrant tiger was putting on an act, but he really liked this kind of spirit beast and this kind of cultivator who was close to being a scoundrel. He cursed in his heart, then took out a jade slip and threw it to Hongqing. Take it, why aren't you leaving? Yes, thank you, senior. Hongqing took the jade slip, turned around and left without even looking at it, and did not even leave a piece of low-grade crystal. Senior. Seeing that Hong Qing got a bargain, a nearby cultivator who cultivated the nascent soul hurriedly shouted, I need the return to void refinement cultivation method. 50 top-grade crystals. Xiaohua said without hesitation. Don't think it's too much. It's too difficult to modify the nascent soul cultivation method. Yes, I can't ask for more. How dare I say no? The cultivator did not dare to say anything and hurriedly offered the crystals. Xiaohua rolled up his sleeves and took the crystals, then threw a jade slip to the cultivator. This cultivator was not like Hong Qing. He took the jade slip and studied it carefully. After a few breaths, the cultivator's expression changed greatly. He looked left and right and hurriedly put the jade slip away. Then he turned into a gust of wind and left. This time no cultivator hesitated and they all shouted, Senior, I also want. Xiaohua shouted. Those who need qi refining, spirit restoring, and void restoring, these 4 types of cultivation methods, divide them into 4 groups. For each higher realm, you'll get 20 top-grade crystals. Take 1 cultivator from each group and give them to me. Before Xiaohua could finish speaking, 4 cultivators of various realms raised their hands and said, Fellow Taoists, quickly. As a result, the remaining cultivators who cultivated their nascent soul immediately gathered around the 4 cultivators like flies that had smelled meat, and each of them took out their crystals. Describing these cultivators as flies was naturally a bit despicable, but looking at their hurried and anxious appearance, it was true. The reason why they were in such a hurry was naturally because they wanted to obtain the cultivation technique as soon as possible, so that they could leave Tong Lake City as soon as possible and escape from Tong Lake City's sphere of influence. This was because they were afraid of Tong Lake City's city lord, Reverend Emerald Lake. Even they knew the value of these cultivation methods to the Heavenly Alliance. How could the Azure Lake Sage not know? Xiaohua might not be afraid of the Azure Lake Sage, but they were afraid that if the Azure Lake Sage had any other thoughts, they might die without a burial place. While everyone was scrambling for the cultivation method in the Changlin Pavilion, Huan Xuan had already reached the 9th floor through the transmission formation in Tong Lake City. When he showed his token and arrived at a hall that looked like a mountain rock floating in the clear water, he was so angry that his nose was almost crooked. This was because a few Tong Lake City disciples who had escaped from the Changlin Pavilion were guarding in front of the hall. It seemed that they did not inform the Azure Lake Sage at all. Damn it! Huan Xuan arrived on the waves and scolded. Why did you escape? Why didn't you die in the Changlin Pavilion? I asked you to inform the city lord. Why hasn't the city lord seen him yet? Without waiting for Huan Xuan to finish, the disciples said with a long face, Sir, it's not that we don't want to inform him, but the city lord has completely sealed off the Lake Heart Hall. We can't inform him. Damn it. If that's the case, why don't you? Master Huan Xuan was still angry and wanted to curse. However, he shut his mouth after cursing halfway. Since Master Bihu had sealed off the Lake Heart Hall, and there were no guards nearby, it meant that there was an extremely important guest visiting. Not to mention the fact that these disciples couldn't report it. Even he couldn't report it. Thinking of this, Huan Xuan could not help sweating again. Therefore, Huan Xuan gritted his teeth and flew up the stairs. However, before he could get close, a cold and gentle force blocked him. No matter how he activated his magic power, he could not get close at all. Huan Xuan waved his hand and took out a flying shuttle. He opened his mouth and poured a mouthful of essence blood into the flying shuttle. Then he made a gesture and the flying shuttle rushed into the Lake Heart Hall like an elite guard. Sir, the disciple beside him said in a low voice, this is an emergency communication Dharma artifact that the city lord personally gave us. We can only use it as a last resort. Sir, why are you using it now? Aren't you afraid that the city lord will blame you? Sigh, if the city lord blames me, I can only bear it. Huan Xuan smiled bitterly. You don't understand what this senior Zhang Xiaohua means to the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance. If I hadn't seen the message from the Tao Alliance, I wouldn't have dared to be so reckless. This is so serious. The disciples were dumbfounded. They did not know much. In their eyes, there were not many people in the world who could be more powerful than the Azure Lake Sage. Huan Xuan ignored their surprise and continued speaking as if he wanted to reduce the pressure. If I don't send out the communication Dharma artifact now and Senior Zhang is missing when the City Lord comes out, none of us will be able to bear the consequences if the City Lord blames us. Rather than that, why don't we risk being punished by the City Lord and send out the message first? As he was speaking, there was a soft swoosh, and a water current rolled up from the rock. The water current flowed down from the stairs and landed in front of Huan Xuan and the disciples. Huan Xuan did not greet the disciples and jumped onto the water current. The water current carried him against the current and into the Lake Heart Palace. The remaining disciples looked at each other and moved their gazes away from the water current. The water current dried up again in a moment. Huan Xuan followed the water current and passed through the soft restriction. As the water current flashed, they arrived in a large palace. This palace was different from ordinary palaces. It looked like an island with beautiful scenery. The floor of the palace was clearly a vast ocean. Looking up, on this lush island, there were thousands of vines that shot up into the sky like horned dragons. They intertwined with pythons above the island and formed a very primitive vine pavilion. The various green leaves on the vines swayed in the salty sea breeze. The sound of the waves and the swaying of the vines entered Huan Xuan's ears. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Chapter 4938. Master Huan Xuan was already familiar with this strange scene. He urged the waves under his feet and flew toward the vine pavilion like lightning. Before he could get close, he heard a slightly high-pitched voice. Esteemed Master Bihu, I'll leave the matter of the magnetism to your Tong Lake City. Once the person succeeds, I'll tell my ancestral teacher and ask him to personally come to Tong Lake City. Oh, who's that? How can he be so arrogant? When Huan Xuanzi heard this voice directly address the city lord as esteemed Master Bihu, he couldn't help but feel slightly shocked. He thought to himself. Then a faint voice sounded. It's my dream to be able to serve Senior Kong. There's no need to thank him. I wouldn't dare to ask him to personally come to Tong Lake City. Come, let me toast fellow Kong. All right, please. The voice answered with satisfaction. Master Huan Xuan. Master Huan Xuan flew closer and saw the two people sitting in the vine pavilion. Before he could see the appearance of the cultivator in a 5-colored robe sitting opposite esteemed Master Bihu, Master Huan Xuan's extremely displeased voice sounded. Can't you see that I'm receiving an important guest in the Lake Heart Hall? Why didn't you send any urgent messages? Esteemed City Lord. Master Huan Xuan didn't dare to get close. He stopped in the jade waves and hurriedly answered. I have an urgent matter to report to esteemed City Lord. Speak. Esteemed Master Bihu said impatiently. Master Huan Xuan hesitated. In just an instant, esteemed Master Bihu scolded. Damn thing, this is Senior Kong Jing from the Peacock Mountain Manor. What can Tong Lake City hide from the Peacock Mountain Manor? Ah, Peacock Mountain Manor? Huan Xuanzi opened his mouth in shock. He wanted to say something, but he stopped. After thinking for a while, he said, All right, City Lord, you should know that Senior Zhang Xiaohua is currently in my Tong Lake City's Chonglin Pavilion. Do you want to go and meet him? Zhang Xiaohua? Esteemed Master Bihu was confused. He frowned and said, Who's Zhang Xiaohua? How come I don't remember? He came to Tong Lake City. And you want me to meet him? As he spoke, Master Bihu even glanced at Kong Jing and said with a smile, Don't you think so, Taoist Kong? Hee, that's right. Who knows who this Zhang Xiaohua is? Kong Jing chimed in with a smile. Huan Xuanzi's back was drenched in sweat as he hurriedly whispered, City Lord, don't you remember? The Tao Alliance, the one who created the spirit root selection technique. Before Huan Xuanzi could finish, Master Bihu flew out of the pavilion with a whoosh. His face was filled with inexplicable excitement as he exclaimed, Huan Xuanzi, are you telling the truth? Of course it's real. Huan Xuan hurriedly explained, Senior Zhang is selling complete nascent soul cultivation techniques that can be cultivated to the Mahayana stage in the Chonglin Pavilion. Damn it, why didn't you say so earlier? Master Bihu raised his hand as if to slap Huan Xuanzi. However, just as he raised his hand, He put it down again as if he had remembered that he had sealed the Lake Heart Hall. At this moment, Master Bihu seemed to have thought of something. His body swayed, and he landed in the pavilion. He cupped his hands and said, Daoist Kong, I have some city affairs to deal with. Why don't you? You're welcome. Kong Jing had already stood up and said lightly, I've heard it. However, as far as I know, Zhang Xiaohua has already died in the blood fiend demonic formation of the demon clan. How could he appear in Tong Lake City? Ah, Zhang Xiaohua has died. Master Bihu was even more shocked. Why didn't I know? However, after he finished speaking, he looked at Kong Jing and smiled apologetically. Yes. Although I'm in charge of Tong Lake City, I'm not in the Heaven Alliance. I'm sure the Heaven Alliance has more detailed information. Even the ordinary alliance leader of the Heaven Alliance. I'm afraid he doesn't know about this. Kong Jing said proudly. I've only heard about this from my grandmaster occasionally. Master Bihu was more convinced after hearing this. He glared at Huan Xuanzi with anger. Huan Xuanzi was also surprised and did not dare to say anything. Master Bihu hurriedly smiled apologetically and said, I'm a little ignorant. Daoist Kong, please enlighten me. Actually, it's nothing much. Kong Jing kept him in suspense. She paused for a moment and continued. According to my grandmaster, Zhang Xiaohua was invited by a family in the Dao Alliance to teach them how to select spiritual roots. In the end, the family leader was possessed by the demon clan. The demon clan set up a blood fiend demonic formation in the family. Not only did they kill Zhang Xiaohua, but they also sacrificed the entire family. Oh my! Master Bihu was shocked. How could the demon clan be so powerful? They even wanted to possess the family leader of an immortal cultivator family? Sigh, that's right. Kong Jing sighed. The spirit chi of heaven and earth has changed. The immortal world gate has closed. Every Taoist cultivator is in danger. The demon clan is rampant in this world. Oh, that's right. Huan Xuanzi suddenly exclaimed. City Lord, I remember now. That Shenming cult's banished lord is also in the Changlin Pavilion. He recognized Zhang Xiaohua. I don't think it's fake. Banished lord? Shenming cult spy in the Dao Alliance? Master Bihu was startled. How did he recognize Zhang Xiaohua? City Lord. Huan Xuanzi hurriedly reminded him. Didn't a jade slip mention this before? The sect that banished lord is a spy is called the Fallen Immortal Sect. The Fallen Immortal Sect. That's right. This banished lord obtained the spiritual roots selection method from the Dao Alliance. He saw Zhang Xiaohua before. The city lord couldn't stand it anymore. He hurriedly nodded and said, Zhang Xiaohua is now the most respected Taoist cultivator of the Dao Alliance. She has become the Dao Alliance's savior. Maybe she has a way to escape from the blood fiend demonic array. That's impossible. Kong Jing still didn't believe it. That day, Elder Gu Qiong and Ji Yan Jinren went to that family and saw Zhang Xiaohua being sacrificially refined with their own eyes. Haha, Daoist Kong, please wait here for a moment. Master Bihu said with a smile. I'll be right back. I'll go with you. Kong Jing said proudly. Since I'm here, I can't let you be fooled. That's great. Master Bihu was overjoyed. He raised his hand and said, Daoist Kong, please. Xiaohua naturally didn't know that the news of his death had spread to the Heavenly Alliance. After dealing with the cultivators of the Heavenly Alliance with the cultivation technique of the Essence Soul, he looked to the side and saw that the disciples of the Shenming cult had also sent away the cultivators of the nascent soul realm. Banished Lord respectfully handed 2 storage rings to Xiaohua with both hands and said, These are the crystals that were just sold. They are. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it and give it a tip. Thank you to Blossoming Blossom Withering Flower, Sword, Chuantong, and other fellow Taoists for their tips. Thank you for your support. I'll add a small chapter first. Next week, 6,000 words will be restored. In addition, I really want to add more chapters. Unfortunately, this book is coming to an end, and I think it's better to finish it with a perfect ending. Thank you again. Chapter 49-39. You don't have to say anymore. Xiaohua took the storage ring and said, "Since I asked you to help me, I naturally trust you." "Thank you, senior." Seeing that there was no one around, exiled king said sincerely, "I didn't expect you to be so magnanimous." Xiaohua kept the storage ring and suddenly asked, "There were too many people just now, so I didn't ask you specifically. I heard you said that you brought more than 10 disciples out of the fallen immortal sect, and only brought back 9. Where are the other disciples?" "Oh, so you wanted to ask about this," exiled king said with a smile. "Since I came out of the fallen immortal sect, I naturally couldn't bring all the disciples of the Heavenly Alliance. I had to bring some real disciples of the fallen immortal sect as a cover. According to my plan, after I obtained the remains of the Royal Dome Spiritual Master and the Heavenly Cycle Demon subduing star formation, I would send the real disciples of the fallen immortal sect back to report. However, because of the appearance of Deputy Hall Master Huang Su, I was the one who sent the message, so I picked out all the disciples of the Heavenly Alliance. Senior, don't worry. I grew up with the disciples of the fallen immortal sect since I was young. I won't attack them easily." That's good." Xiaohua nodded and took out a few jade slips from his chest. He handed them to exiled king and said, "I'm very pleased that you are so kind. This is for you." "This is..." Exiled king was puzzled but still took them. However, when he looked at them with his divine thought, his expression changed greatly. However, just as his expression changed, he hurriedly looked at the other disciples of the Shenming sect. The other disciples were afraid of Xiaohua and didn't know what Xiaohua had asked exiled king, so they didn't dare to come closer and stayed a little far away. Xiaohua said with a smile, "This is a spirit separation technique that I left for you. Consider it as your reward." Yes, thank you, Senior Zhang." Exiled king hurriedly kept it and looked to the left and said, "Can you copy this technique for my senior and junior brothers?" Xiaohua understood and nodded. "Of course." The disciples were overjoyed and bowed to express their gratitude. "Thank you, Senior Zhang." This Tong Lake City's city lord seems to be very arrogant." Xiaohua looked at the empty Changlin pavilion and said curiously, "Forget it, this old man won't wait anymore. Senior, don't be anxious. We'll go and take a look." A few disciples hurriedly said as they flew out of the Changlin pavilion. At this moment, Xiaohua sent a voice transmission to Exiled Monarch. "Exiled Monarch, do you know how to deal with this set of nascent soul cultivation techniques and 2 sets of nascent soul cultivation techniques?" The banished king did not dare to speak carelessly. He sent a telepathic message in a low voice. "Junior, please instruct me. I'll give you a primal soul cultivation technique and a nascent soul cultivation technique." Xiaohua laughed. "As for the other nascent soul cultivation technique, you have to think of a way to give it to the Tao Alliance." Zhijun smiled wryly and said, "Senior Zhang, you think too highly of me. How can I meet the leader of the Heavenly Alliance? Of course, this junior will give these 2 jade slips to my sect master. Sect master should be able to offer them to Lord Alliance leader. But the Tao Alliance, I definitely won't be able to do it. Don't worry." Xiaohua laughed. "This old man has already recorded my intentions in the jade slips. You only need to offer these 3 jade slips to the Heavenly Alliance. Then this junior understands." The banished king felt that his burden had been greatly lightened and hurriedly replied. Just as they were talking, the Changlin pavilion's array emitted a terrifying buzzing sound again. The surrounding bamboo joints transformed into pythons that danced in the air. Each and every one of them roared as they pounced outside the pavilion. The entire Changlin pavilion shone brightly, and 2 figures appeared in front of the hundreds of pythons' bamboo joints. The person in front was Master Bihu, who was dressed in a lake blue robe. As soon as he entered, his gaze was like lightning as he looked at Xiaohua. Kongjing, who was behind him, released her divine sense and scanned the entire Changlin pavilion. "This is fellow Taoist Zhang Xiaohua?" Master Bihu was slightly surprised when he saw that Xiaohua was only in the nascent soul realm. "Fellow Taoist, are you the city lord of Tong Lake City?" Xiaohua asked in displeasure when he saw that Master Bihu did not introduce himself. At this moment, Kongjing had already scanned the Changlin pavilion with her divine sense and landed on Xiaohua. However, in addition to her divine sense, Kong Jing's originally pitch-black eyes suddenly glowed with 5 colors. Yes, this old man is the city lord of Tong Lake City, Master Bihu. Master Bihu realized that he was being a little rude and hurriedly cupped his hands with a smile. I didn't expect the famous fellow Daoist Zhang Xiaohua to come to my Tong Lake City. This is really a surprise. Humph. Zhang Xiaohua was about to speak when Kong Jing, who was beside Master Bihu, snorted coldly. You're just a nascent soul cultivator. Yet you dare to pretend to be Zhang Xiaohua in front of this old man. If I don't let you know how powerful the Heavenly Alliance cultivators are, you'll think that the Heavenly Alliance cultivators are all idiots. While speaking, Kong Jing raised her hand and stretched out her 5 fingers, grabbing towards Xiaohua. Above the 5 fingers, a 5-colored light flashed from the 5 fingers, completely enveloping the surrounding hundreds of feet. A suffocating sealing force was actually born from this simple grasp. Fellow Taoist Kong. Master Bihu was stunned. He did not know why Kong Jing thought that Xiaohua was a fake and immediately attacked him. He could not help but shout in a low voice. However, seeing the 5-colored light appearing from Kong Jing's fingers, Master Bihu immediately understood what she meant. He secretly gritted his teeth, and his figure flashed back slightly. He thought to himself, damn it. This Kong Jing must have some secret that she hasn't told this old man. Otherwise, how could she use the 5-colored sealing technique right off the bat? This Zhang Xiaohua must be the real Zhang Xiaohua. This guy wants to seal Zhang Xiaohua and send her to the Heavenly Alliance. No, send her to the Peacock Manor to ask for a reward. After all, this Zhang Xiaohua is really too important. Oh, Xiaohua was also very surprised. He looked in confusion at the light and shadow that sealed off the surrounding space. It wasn't because Kong Jing suddenly attacked him, but because this 5-colored light and shadow was very strange. It actually matched with the 5 elements. The 5-colored light and shadow controlled the power of the 5 elements in the surrounding space. Not only did it isolate the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, even Xiaohua's divine sense was showing signs of being restricted. However, just as the 5-colored light closed, Xiaohua smiled faintly. Haha, fellow Taoist, what is the meaning of this? Do you want to seal this old man? What? This Kong wants to seal you, the fake Zhang Xiaohua. Seeing that Xiaohua did not have the strength to fight back, Kong Jing could not help but laugh sinisterly. I'll take you to the ancestor and let him deal with you. Oh, who is the ancestor of your family? Xiaohua said with a smile, as if chatting, but at the same time, he waved his hand. Kaya. A burst of thunder sounded, and a giant hand of lightning appeared. That hand of lightning was like the condensation of a dragon's lightning. Under the lightning, a layer of annihilation was like a vast wave, flooding the 5-colored barrier. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote a monthly vote a recommendation vote, collect a gift, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 4940. Rumble. The entire Chonglin Pavilion shook with a loud roar. The bamboo pythons, which seemed to have some momentum earlier, were now like loaches under the might of the large thunderbolt hand and the 5-colored light shadow. They were all defeated amidst the trembling sounds. Of course, along with the collapse of the bamboo pythons was the extremely powerful 5-colored barrier in Master Bihu's eyes. Master Bihu stabilized his body in the shaking. Seeing that the 5-colored light shadow was destroyed by the lightning hand, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He was shocked in his heart. Kong Jing is a void refinement cultivator like me. He may not have used his full strength, but this is the secret technique of the Peacock Mountain Manor's disciple. With Zhang Xiaohua's nascent soul strength, he couldn't have taken it so easily, right? Could it be that this Zhang Xiaohua is already a Mahayana cultivator? Ah. Not only was Master Bihu shocked, but Kong Jing was also stunned. He whispered, You actually recovered. However, Kong Jing only said half a sentence before he slapped his own forehead and shouted, It's only been 3 to 5 years. How much of your magic power can you recover? Boom. Kong Jing slapped his own forehead. However, unlike nascent soul cultivators, the top of his head didn't spurt out a beam of light or a nascent soul. Instead, his whole body was suffused with 5-colored light. The light rushed into the air and condensed together. It was a 5-colored peacock Dharma body that seemed to be somewhat solid. Damn it, the Dharma body of a true spirit nascent soul. Master Bihu saw this and didn't dare to be negligent. His body flashed quickly. Master Banished, who had already dodged to the side when Master Bihu appeared, was also shocked. He wanted to warn him, but when he saw that the space around him was already filled with 5-colored light, he could only move his body to the side. As soon as Kong Jing's 5-colored peacock Dharma body materialized, it immediately flapped its wings and pounced towards Xiao Hua. The sealing power of the 5-colored light shadow suddenly became several times stronger. Xiao Hua wanted to activate his thunderbolt technique, but when he saw the banished king dodging in panic, he waved his hand and summoned the seal of the tumbling sea. He raised his finger, and the seal of the tumbling sea grew to the size of several acres. It smashed towards Kong Jing's 5-colored peacock Dharma body like a giant mountain. However, what made Xiao Hua's jaw drop was that the right wing of the 5-colored peacock celestial body emitted a 5-colored light screen before the seal of the overturn the sea landed. With a whoosh, it landed on the jade-like light of the seal of the overturn the sea, and the light of the seal of the overturn the sea was immediately extinguished. The rumbling sound also disappeared, and the 5-colored light screen rapidly shrank. Haha, this 5-colored sealing barrier is interesting. Xiao Hua laughed and ignored the falling seal of turning the sea. He raised his hand and took out the 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel from the space. When the cudgel grew to a size of several hundred feet, Xiao Hua waved the cudgel and smashed it down. Seeing the seal of turning the sea being brushed down by the 5-colored light, Kong Jing coldly snorted. She was still arrogant, and then she waved her left wing again, wanting to brush the cudgel away. However, when the 5-colored light brushed past the cudgel trembled and only shrank a little. The cudgel still smashed into the 5-colored peacock celestial body. Aoyo. The light around the 5-colored peacock Dharma body shone brightly, and then became extremely distorted. As Kong Jing wailed, the Dharma body carried him and rolled around in pain in Changlin Pavilion. The 5-colored peacock Dharma body trembled and shrank back into Kong Jing's body. Moreover, with the withdrawal of the true spirit celestial body, the pain on Kong Jing's face doubled, and her left arm trembled involuntarily. Xiao Hua smiled coldly and raised his hand to take back the seal of turning the sea. The wishful heaven cudgel in his hand also went into the space. Say, Senior. Seeing Xiao Hua defeat Kong Jing's true spirit celestial body, how could Master Bihu still regard Xiao Hua as a nascent soul cultivator? He hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Junior and Kong Jing had eyes but failed to see. Please forgive us, Senior. Kong Jing is also a person who abhors evil. Seeing that someone wanted to pretend to be Senior. Shut up. Xiao Hua said coldly. Do you think this old man can't see his intentions? Yes, Junior knows. Master Bihu's cultivation was similar to Kong Jing's, but as the city lord of Tong Lake City, he had much more experience than Kong Jing, who was a disciple of the Peacock Mountain Manor. He immediately followed Xiao Hua's words and said, Junior also just understood his intentions. But what? Xiao Hua glanced at Master Bihu, causing Master Bihu's heart to tremble. But how could Master Bihu dare to let Kong Jing die in Tong Lake City? He hurriedly smiled and said, After all, he is also greedy for merit. Who let Senior be as brilliant as the sun in the Yilin continent? An existence that is the focus of hundreds of millions of cultivators. If we are lucky enough to invite Senior to the Peacock Mountain Manor, this would be a great merit. Do you know what is called a man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant? Xiao Hua looked coldly at Kong Jing, who was struggling to get up from the ground, and said, This old man gave you the Heavenly Alliance's spiritual root selection method, and the primordial spirit cultivation method, but you are still not satisfied and want to capture me. Are you ready to kill the goose that lays the golden eggs? Could it be that you know that my magic power has not recovered, so you want to take advantage of my precarious situation and attack me first? Why don't you take a look at your own strength? You are only in the void refinement realm, and you dare to show off in front of me. If not for the fact that you are a junior, this old man will definitely kill you with this strike. Senior. Master Bihu heard, and was even more frightened. He knelt down and said, Junior thanks Senior on behalf of Kong Jing for not killing me. Hearing Xiaohua's words and seeing Master Bihu kneel in such a manner, the arrogant Kong Jing's face turned ashen. He finally lowered his head, kneeled and said, Junior thanks Senior for not killing me. Banished King and the other disciples of Shenming cult were dumbfounded. Who was Master Bihu and who was Kong Jing of the Peacock Manor? They were even more clear than Xiaohua. They could never have imagined that these two experts, who they would normally never see face to face, would actually kneel in front of Xiaohua. Seeing Kong Jing kneel down, Xiaohua's anger was mostly gone. He flicked his sleeves and said, Get up. Yes, it's all because of my greed. Although Kong Jing still had some resentment in his heart, he did not dare to say anything. He followed Master Bihu's words and said, Junior should not have taken advantage of the situation. There is nothing wrong with being greedy. Which cultivator in the world is not greedy? Xiaohua looked at Kong Jing and said lightly, Greed has to be moderate. Taking must be done according to the will of heaven and conscience. Only then can one have a solid Taoist foundation and be fearless. Kong Jing was still somewhat disdainful, but he still nodded. Master Bihu said humbly, Yes, Junior understands. Perhaps Kong Jing does not feel these words deeply, but as the city lord of a big city, I really feel that these words are very harsh. Even if Junior understands, it is extremely difficult to do it. Junior will definitely correct himself in the future. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 49-41. Forget it, forget it. Xiaohua looked at Kong Jing's neck, which was still a bit stiff, and looked unconvinced. He casually waved his hand and said, Your bloodline has already been injured by this old man. Don't use your bloodline Dharma body for 1,000 years. Moreover, after returning to the Peacock Manor, use your sex bloodline secret technique to meditate for 1,000 years. This 1,000 years, just think of it as seclusion. Remember, don't use your Dharma body, or you will die. Kong Jing's face changed greatly. He looked at Xiaohua with some disbelief. Although he felt that his Dharma body was injured, he also knew that as long as he meditated for a few years, he would recover. How could it be as serious as Xiaohua said? He felt that Xiaohua was bluffing. Senior. Master Bihu was also shocked. He hurriedly bowed and said, Senior, please take pity on this junior. If Kong Jing was seriously injured in this junior's Tong Lake City, wouldn't the Peacock Manor tear down this junior's Tong Lake City? Senior, can you be magnanimous? Xiaohua shook his head lightly and said, Don't blame this old man. This old man didn't do anything ruthless. It's just that the Peacock Manor's 5 colors Dharma body is based on the 5 elements primordial spirit, and this old man's wishful steel rod is not one of the 5 elements. It is the nemesis of this 5 colors Dharma body. Tell me, if he doesn't meditate for 1,000 years, how can he recover? When Kong Jing heard Xiaohua mention the 5 elemental origin spirits, his face turned deathly pale. He knew that what Xiaohua said was not false, and he also knew that Xiaohua had already shown mercy. Thus he respectfully said, Yes, this junior understands. This junior will return to the Peacock Manor and meditate for 1,000 years. Don't worry. Xiaohua raised his hand and said, How do you know this old man's power is completely gone? Tell me everything you know. Yes, this junior will speak first. How could Master Bihu miss a good opportunity to make friends with Xiaohua? He hurriedly said, Taoist Kong, please adjust your breath first. After this junior finishes speaking, let's see if there is anything I missed. Taoist Kong, please add. And Xiaohua nodded slightly, and Kong Jing didn't say anything else. He still had the pride of an aristocratic family, so he wouldn't steal the limelight from Master Bihu. After the esteemed Master Bihu finished speaking, he looked at Kong Jing again. He knew very well that he only knew about 60% to 70% of the information. The other 30% or 40% was the most secretive information. It was impossible for him to know about it. Of course, if it was just Kong Jing, how would he have the chance to speak? Kong Jing cleared her throat and told Xiaohua everything she knew. Xiaohua pinched his chin and laughed. Damn it, it's just a blood fiend demonic formation. How could it possibly take this old man's life? Old man Guqiong and Ji Yinzhenren are underestimating me. It's not just the two seniors from the Dao Alliance. Kong Jing's flattery skills were slightly better than Master Emerald Lake's, he said softly. Even Senior Long Shenxi of the Sky Alliance and my ancestor, Old Man Peacock, feel that you have no chance of surviving. Enough. Xiaohua looks at Kong Jing and waves his hand. Don't say so much nonsense. Let me ask you, did you come alone, or were you followed by other disciples of the Peacock Mountain Manor? Of course there were other disciples. Kong Jing replied in confusion. And, hearing Kong Jing's words, Xiaohua took out 4 jade slips from his chest and handed them to Kong Jing. You dared to attack this old man. This old man wanted to punish you. But since you're just a junior, I didn't want to argue with you. This is a complete spiritual root selection method, a complete nascent soul cultivation method, and 2 complete nascent soul cultivation methods. Help me bring them to Old Man Peacock, and ask him to pass them to the Alliance Master of the Sky Alliance. Consider it my compensation to you. Happiness came too suddenly, and Kong Jing couldn't believe it. He stared blankly at the 4 jade slips in front of him, and didn't take them for a long time. Master Bihu's eyes flashed with a scorching light. He greedily looked at the 4 jade slips. He understood the meaning of the 4 jade slips better than Kong Jing. Through the jade slips, he could almost see countless crystals and countless desires being satisfied. Plop. Suddenly, Kong Jing willingly kneeled on the ground and kowtowed to Xiaohua. Senior Zhang, I was really blinded. You prioritized the inheritance of the Sky Alliance, and the fate of the billions of cultivators in the Sky Alliance. Junior's Dao heart isn't even one of Senior's billions. Junior sincerely asks for Senior's forgiveness for my previous rashness. Alas, get up. You're so emotional. Xiaohua helped Kong Jing up and said, You're all my juniors. How can I take your immaturity to heart? Yes, Junior understands. A long-lost feeling arose in Kong Jing's heart. This feeling made him feel more at ease than when he was in front of Old Man Peacock. Then, Kong Jing took the 4 jade slips. Suddenly, he was stunned and asked curiously, Senior, why are there 2 nascent soul cultivation methods? My Peacock Mountain Manor also cultivates the primordial spirit. Oh, the nascent soul cultivation method was given to the Dao Alliance Master by the Sky Alliance. Xiaohua said with a smile. How can you give it to the Dao Alliance? Kong Jing wasn't the only one who was shocked. Even Master Emerald Lake cried out. Master Bihu even said, Senior Zhang, you're a cultivator of the Sky Alliance. How can you give the nascent soul cultivation method to the Dao Alliance? Moreover, don't forget that the Dao Alliance has sealed the spiritual root selection method from the Sky Alliance. Although Kong Jing had revealed many secrets, he didn't know much. The information was still stuck at the stage where Xiaohua was suspected to be a rogue cultivator of the Sky Alliance. That was why Master Bihu said that. That's Old Man Guqiong's wild guess. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, My background isn't what you think. Therefore, in my eyes, both the Sky Alliance and the Dao Alliance are Dao sect disciples. I'll treat them equally. Since the Dao Alliance sealed the Heaven Sacrificial Abyss, and even gave you a fake spiritual root selection method, I'll give you a real spiritual root selection method. Oh, the spirit root selection method that Shenming taught that banished monarch brought back is real. Now, since I've given the Heaven Alliance a complete set of nascent soul cultivation methods from essence refinement to void return, and a complete set of nascent soul cultivation methods from chi refinement to tribulation transcendence, I naturally have to give the complete set of nascent soul cultivation methods to the Dao Alliance. The change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is a great calamity for the Dao sect. However, it's not a hopeless situation. The Dao Alliance and the Sky Alliance are brothers. If we work together, we'll definitely be able to overcome this calamity. Tell this to Long Shenxi, and he'll definitely understand. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and... Chapter 49-42. Kong Jing was dumbfounded, and so was Master Bihu. They knew that this jade slip was important, and that it contained the cultivation method that Xiaohua had modified. However, they had never imagined that this jade slip would actually contain a complete cultivation method from the qi refining stage to the tribulation transcendence stage. Moreover, it even contained a nearly complete cultivation method for the nascent soul stage. If that was the case, then just how strong was this unremarkable cultivator before them, whose cultivation seemed to be at most in the nascent soul stage? Even old man Gu Qiong, Taoist Ji Yan, and Long Shenxi couldn't modify a tribulation transcendence cultivation method. However, this cultivator named Zhang Xiaohua had casually given it to the Heaven Alliance and the Tao Alliance. In that case, old man Gu Qiong and Long Shenxi, the #1 expert of the Tao Alliance, weren't even worthy of carrying this cultivator's shoes. Oh, as for the remaining void refinement and Tao integration parts that are not in the jade slip, this old man will find a way to give them to you after modifying them. Xiaohua's words were truly shocking. As if he had thought of something, he casually said, "However, tell Long Shenxi not to find a way to find this old man and not to disturb this old man." Kong Jing and Master Bihu didn't speak. They couldn't measure Xiaohua's cultivation level, so they couldn't measure their own shock. In other words, the two of them could only express their feelings by saying that they were shocked beyond words. They could understand what Xiaohua had said earlier. After all, nascent soul cultivators would sometimes refer to nascent soul cultivation methods, and nascent soul cultivators would also refer to nascent soul cultivation methods. Therefore, when Xiaohua modified the void refinement cultivation method with his tribulation transcendence cultivation level, they only felt that Xiaohua was like a celestial being, and was the #1 person in the Yilin continent. However, Xiaohua said that he still wanted to cultivate the void refinement, and Tao integration cultivation methods in the nascent soul cultivation method. The reason why he hadn't modified them before was simply because he didn't have enough time. This wasn't a realm that cultivators in the mortal world could reach. No, even ordinary immortals in the immortal world couldn't have this kind of strength, right? These were two completely different paths of cultivation. What's wrong? Xiaohua was somewhat puzzled. He looked at the silent two and asked curiously, "Could it be that you want me to modify it now? I don't have that much time." Kong Jing struggled to close his mouth and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Even though he wanted to ask Xiaohua if he could really modify the primordial spirit cultivation method, he was not that stupid. He nodded vigorously and said respectfully, "I understand. I'll report this to the ancestor, and ask him to copy these jade slips and give them to the Heavenly Alliance. I'll also pass Senior's words to the Alliance Master." When she spoke up to hear, Kong Jing hesitated for a moment, and then she withdrew a jade talisman that was shaped like a peacock from her bosom and respectfully passed it to Xiaohua as she said, "Senior Zhang, this is a token of my peacock villa. If you have the time, can you make a trip to the peacock villa? Oh, there's no need for you to go. You just have to activate this peacock illusion, and this junior will be able to sense it within 10,000 miles. This junior will definitely ask the old ancestor to personally invite senior." Seeing the familiar peacock illusion, Xiaohua was somewhat surprised. He raised his hand and grabbed the peacock illusion. He didn't use his divine sense to examine it, and only used his eyes to carefully examine it. He said in pleasant surprise, "This is your peacock villa's jade talisman?" "Yes, this is my peacock villa's jade talisman." Seeing that Xiaohua was interested in this jade talisman, Kong Jing was very happy and said, "If senior needs the cultivation method to make this jade talisman, this junior will present it to you." "Okay." Xiaohua nodded. Kong Jing hurriedly took out a rather simple and unadorned jade slip from her bosom, and respectfully offered it to Xiaohua. Xiaohua looked at it and happily accepted it. Then he asked again, "Does your peacock villa only have this peacock illusion? Can you also refine the phoenix illusion?" "Of course." Kong Jing hurriedly replied. "The peacock illusion in this junior's hand is used for communication. The phoenix illusion is used for self-defense. My peacock villa also has the holy dragon illusion for attack." "Haha, so that's how it is." Xiaohua clapped and said with a smile, Looks like this old man has some karma with the Peacock Villa. No wonder I could meet you here. Forget it, since this is the case. This old man will give you some other cultivation methods of the Peacock Villa. While speaking, Xiaohua took out some jade slips and some medicinal pills and gave them to Kong Jing. Although Kong Jing didn't know what karma Xiaohua was talking about, seeing Xiaohua like this, how could she not know that Xiaohua favored the Peacock Villa? She hurriedly took the jade slips and thanked him respectfully. As for you, Xiaohua finally looked at the excited Kong Jing and thought for a while. He took out a jade bottle and handed it to Kong Jing, saying, "You have bad intentions and offended this senior. This is an unforgivable crime. However, this old man will give you a spiritual pill. If you can refine it within 1,000 years, your primordial spirit will definitely grow several times stronger. You can expect to reach the Tao integration stage." Many thanks, senior. Kong Jing was about to cry. That year, Old Man Peacock had already said that his aptitude was extraordinary, but it would stop at the void refinement stage. Now he had profited from a disaster. Even he didn't dare to believe it. "Don't thank this old man." Xiaohua handed the jade bottle to him and said, "You have to thank the unknown senior of your Peacock Villa from who knows how many years ago. In the future, you have to do more good deeds and accumulate more power for your descendants." Yes, this junior understands. Kong Jing took the jade bottle and didn't dare to ask more. He carefully put away all the jade slips together with it. "Go." Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "I think the leaders of the Heavenly Alliance must be in a terrible situation now. Quickly send these jade slips to them. This junior will take my leave." Kong Jing knew that the matter was urgent and didn't dare to delay. He hurriedly bowed and said, "This junior hopes that senior will come to my Peacock Villa when you have time." "And this old man knows." Xiaohua nodded and watched Kong Jing leave. Senior. Seeing Kong Jing leave, Master Bihu hurriedly knelt down and said, "This junior pleads for mercy on behalf of the cultivators outside the Heavenly Alliance. Please give this cultivation method to them." Xiaohua looked at Master Bihu. How could he not know that Master Bihu's original intention of asking for the cultivation method was 70% for himself and 30% for the other cultivators? However, he didn't mind. He smiled and waved his hand. He took out 4 jade slips and handed them to Master Bihu and said, "Of course, take them." Xiaohua's generosity surprised the venerable Master Bihu. He had already prepared many excuses in his heart to persuade Xiaohua, but he really didn't expect Xiaohua to be so straightforward. He didn't even ask a single question, and directly gave the jade slip to him. This was simply treating this jade slip as a piece of cabbage. Master Bihu trembled as he received the jade slips. His mind was in a mess and he didn't know what else to say. At this moment, Xiaohua asked again, "This old man wants to ask you, does your Tong Lake City have an auction house that can gather all the cultivators in Tong Lake City?" Master Bihu answered without thinking, reporting to senior, "This junior has an auction house in Tong Lake City that can hold hundreds of thousands of people. Usually, the number of cultivators who come to Tong Lake City to bid in Tong Lake City is only slightly more than 100,000. Master Bihu was suddenly stunned. He realized that his answer was strange and hurriedly asked, "Senior, did you just say, all the cultivators? Including those who come to sell? And the owners of those shops?" "That's right, all of them." Xiaohua nodded. Reporting to senior, this junior doesn't know much about the owners of the shops on the 1st and 6th floors. Junior's disciples are in charge of them. As for the 7th, 8th, and 9th floors, most of them are occupied by nearby sects and clans. In order to ensure their safety, this junior has set up a transportation array between these 3 floors and the auction house. If this junior activates the transportation array, as long as their strength is inferior to this junior, or they don't use their magic power, they can be directly transported to the auction house. As for the other floors, this junior needs to send disciples to inform them. However, this junior is afraid that the auction house won't be able to accommodate them. Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and asked, "Are there any bids in the auction house right now?" "Senior, please wait a moment," Master Bihu said and hurriedly took out a jade slip. After looking at it for a moment, he said, "Reporting to senior, there is a spirit beast bidding right now. As he spoke, the esteemed Master Bihu took out another artifact that looked like a book. He raised his hand and pointed at it. The book immediately flashed with dense spots of light. In just a moment, 80% of the book was filled. Master Bihu hurriedly raised his head and said, "Reporting to Senior, with the changes in the world's spiritual energy, the strength of spirit beasts has greatly increased. Therefore, as long as there is a spirit beast bidding, there will be a lot of cultivators coming to the auction house. Today, there are already 90,000 cultivators in the auction house. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip." Chapter 49-43. Master Bihu trembled as he put away the jade slip. His mind was in a mess and he didn't know what else to say. At this moment, Xiaohua asked, "Let me ask you, does your Tong Lake City have an auction house that can gather all the cultivators in the city?" Master Bihu didn't even think before replying. Replying to Senior, Junior has an auction house in Tong Lake City that can hold over 100,000 people. Normally, the number of cultivators that come to Tong Lake City to bid is only a little over 100,000. Master Bihu suddenly froze and realized that there was something wrong with his answer. He hastily asked, "Did Senior just say all the cultivators? Including those that come to sell? What about the owners of those shops?" "Correct, all of them." Xiaohua nodded. Replying to Senior, Junior doesn't know much about the store owners on the 1st and 6th floors. They are all handled by Junior's disciples. However, the 7th, 8th, and 9th floors are mostly occupied by the nearby sects and clans. In order to ensure their safety, Junior has set up a transportation formation between the 3 floors and the auction house. If Junior activates the transportation formation, as long as their strength is inferior to Junior's or they don't use their magic power, they can be directly transported to the auction house. As for the other floors, Junior will need to send disciples to inform them. However, Junior is afraid that the auction house won't be able to accommodate them. Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and asked, "Are there any bids in the auction house right now?" "Senior, please wait a moment." Master Bihu hastily took out a jade slip and looked at it for a moment before saying, "Reporting to Senior, there is a spirit beast bidding right now." As he spoke, the esteemed Master Bihu took out another artifact that looked like a book. He raised his hand and pointed at it. The book immediately flashed with dense spots of light. In just a moment, 80% of the book was filled. Master Bihu hastily raised his head and said, "Reporting to Senior, with the changes in the world's spirit energy, the strength of spirit beasts has greatly increased. Therefore, as long as there is a spirit beast bidding, many cultivators will come to the auction house. Today, there are already 90,000 cultivators in the spirit beast auction. How about this?" Xiaohua pondered for a moment, then said with a smile, "This old man will follow you to the auction house and invite the owners of the stores on the 7th, 8th, and 9th floors, as well as the cultivators who are selling in these stores to the auction house. Senior, you want to?" Master Bihu seemed to understand what Xiaohua wanted to do, but he still couldn't believe it. Xiaohua smiled and said to Master Bihu, "What can this old man do?" The 4 jade strips were handed over to the Peacock Mountain Manor. However, how could this old man know if they could deliver them to the Heavenly Alliance? Even if it was sent to the Heaven Alliance, I wouldn't know if Long Shensi would be so generous as to give it to the Tao Alliance. Therefore, this old man has to prepare for a rainy day. Master Bihu hurriedly nodded and said, Yes, you're right. Elder Peacock will give the jade slips to the Heaven Alliance, but no one can guarantee that the Heaven Alliance will give the jade slips to the Tao Alliance, or that the jade slips they give the Tao Alliance will be complete." At this point, Master Bihu took a deep breath and said, "Even if I take these 4 jade slips and want to bid for them, I have to consider the Heaven Alliance's attitude." "It's good that you know." Xiaohua nodded. "Those 4 jade strips are the price for this old man borrowing your auction house." I don't dare. Master Bihu smiled apologetically and said, "It's my honor to be able to help you. Moreover, once your cultivation method is sold in my Tong Lake auction house, this old man will become famous in Tong Lake City. You should also be prepared to be taught a lesson by the Heavenly Alliance." Xiaohua said meaningfully. "Yes, I understand. Master Bihu nodded and raised his hand, saying, "Senior, please." The Tong Lake Auction Hall was an extremely large auction hall. Tens of thousands of cultivators dressed in cloaks that covered their faces were seated in various places. Each of them was shouting loudly with excitement. At this moment, on the high platform, where the water was gushing out like a fountain, a beast egg that was over 10 zhong in size was emitting a milky white halo. This beast egg was very strange. Not only did the halo seem to be solid, it rushed to the high platform and slightly rotated, but it did not dissipate immediately. The aura that the halo emitted when it flashed also covered an area of several hundred feet to the left of the high platform. This fellow cultivator bids 177,000 top-grade crystals. In the sky not far from the beast egg, a young scholar dressed in a Confucian robe held a folding fan in his hand and pointed at a book-like magic weapon with a smile. He raised his hand and pointed at a cultivator, who raised his hand to point at a book-like magic weapon. He said, "Who else wants to bid? This is a rare-winged strange beast. Its newborn has the strength of the 10th level of Qi refining. I bid 200,000. A hoarse voice that was obviously transformed by a cloak sounded from the corner. The scholar was overjoyed and raised his folding fan again, shouting, "Okay, this one." However, just as the scholar was speaking, 2 balls of aqua blue light appeared on the gushing spring platform like a stream of water. As the balls of light rotated, 2 muffled pops rang out, like the explosion of a candle. The light shattered and 2 human figures were revealed from the light and shadow. The scholar who presided over the auction was stunned. Seeing that it was Master Bihu in front of him, he hurriedly bowed and said, "This subordinate greets Master Bihu. Does Master Bihu have any orders?" "Stop all auctions. Senior Zhang has important matters to attend to." Master Bihu's face was solemn as he ordered, "Withdraw first. Immediately activate the transportation formations on the 7th, 8th, and 9th floors." Ah! The scholar was stunned. He stole a glance at Xiao Hua beside Master Bihu and hurriedly whispered, "Master Bihu, the young sect master of the spiritual Magpie sect and the 7th leader of the Yu Zhong Immortal Alliance, are all in the auction house. How about you wait for this subordinate to sell the beast egg first? Go quickly." Master Bihu frowned and waved his hand. No need to be long-winded. Yes, the scholar didn't dare to say anything else. He glanced at the beast egg and waved his hand. A splash of water rushed out from the high platform and enveloped his body, causing him to disappear in an instant. Master Bihu. At this moment, a short cultivator arrogantly stood up from his seat and shouted, "What is the meaning of this? This old man is bidding according to your Tong Lake City's rules. How can you break your own rules? If you don't want to establish yourself in Tong Lake City, you can tell this old man." This old man remembers that many cultivators have mentioned this to this old man before. That's right. Without waiting for the cultivator to finish speaking, a beautiful woman stood up diagonally across from him and said with a charming smile, "This old woman also wants to see who will be able to win the bid for the winged heavenly beast egg today. If you don't continue bidding for the beast egg, this old woman will tear down your Tong Lake City. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote. Collect it and give it a tip. Sorry, I sent the wrong message at noon. Please update. There's nothing to say." Chapter 49-44. Oh, seniors. Master Bihu's expression tightened when he saw the 2 of them speak. He didn't dare to be negligent and hastily bowed. Junior's disciple has already reported to Junior. Humph. At this moment, Xiao Hua, who was next to Master Bihu, coldly snorted. This old man has some important matters to attend to and needs to borrow Tong Lake City's auction house. When this old man is done, you 2 can show off your worth. Damn it, you're. The 2 cultivators were furious at the same time. Just as they were about to curse, a tribulation transcending cultivators' pressure emerged from Xiao Hua's body like a stormy sea. It roared and rushed around the auction house. In just a moment, the pressure enveloped the entire auction house. Ah! Not to mention the other cultivators in the auction house. Even the 2 cultivators who were called seniors by Master Bihu couldn't help but tremble under this pressure. They cried out in alarm, say, "Senior, please spare us." Little cultivators who haven't even reached the Dao integration stage actually dare to be arrogant in front of this old man. Xiaohua coldly said. You're just bidding for a strange beast, yet you still want to show off your arrogance. How can any auction house break the rules unless there's an urgent matter? If this old man wasn't here, how could Master Bihu dare to offend you for no reason? You can't even understand this simple logic. Have you too cultivated your cultivation to become dogs? Yes, Junior knows his mistake. Junior knows his mistake. In the face of Xiaohua's pressure that was like the firmament, the two cultivators didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They could only apologize in a low voice. Crack! At this moment, a soft sound rang out. The winged sky strange beast egg that was originally flickering with a milky white halo suddenly cracked open. A bare, dragon-like beast head poked out. This so-called winged sky strange beast's eyes still hadn't opened. It opened its mouth and made a jiji sound, as if it was calling for something. The beast head was indeed turning towards Xiaohua. Oh, Xiaohua was somewhat astonished. He looked at this cute beast cub in amazement, because he felt a trace of his pressure being swallowed by the beast cub. Interesting. Xiaohua smiled faintly and withdrew his pressure. Jiji. The winged sky strange beast seemed to have lost its target, and began to make random noises. Senior. Master Emerald Lake said with a smile. Senior's pressure caused this winged sky beast to appear. It probably treats you as a family member. Now, even if the winged sky beast was sold to anyone else, it probably wouldn't be able to recognize anyone as its master. If Senior doesn't mind, this Junior will offer this strange beast to Senior. What do I want this winged heavenly beast for? Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had a lot of spiritual pets in his space. Which one of them wasn't a peerless creature? Senior. The beautiful woman hurriedly smiled and said, This is fate. Your aura has already been absorbed by the winged sky beast. In fact, it has already recognized you as its master. There's no point in bidding for it anymore. All right. Xiaohua nodded helplessly. He waved his hand and took the winged heavenly beast and the broken egg. When the winged heavenly beast smelled Xiaohua's aura, it immediately quieted down. It shrank back into the egg and began to devour it bit by bit. Wong wong. At this moment, hundreds of reefs appeared around the high platform. They let out a rumbling sound amidst the splashes of water. Xiaohua knew that this was the restriction to activate the transmission array. He didn't have time to carefully look at the winged sky beast. He patted the broken egg with his hand and put the strange beast and the egg into his space. Senior, please wait a moment. Master Emerald Lake hurriedly formed a seal and hit each of the reefs. He said, Junior will invite them over. All right. Xiaohua slightly nodded and said, When you need this old man, just say the word. Yes. Master Emerald Lake responded. His whole body produced illusions of splashes of water, and fell into the reefs. The reefs in the illusions began to dim and gradually disappeared. Ka. Following the disappearance of the reefs, layers of stone steps appeared in the sky above the auction house. They let out a crisp sound and extended towards Master Emerald Lake. Moreover, following the appearance of the stone steps, cultivators with puzzled and dissatisfied faces appeared on the stone steps. However, these cultivators looked at Master Emerald Lake and Xiaohua on the high platform, as well as the cultivators in the auction house. They looked at each other and didn't ask any questions. After 5 minutes, Master Emerald Lake wiped the sweat from his forehead. He looked at the 13 reefs in front of him and said in a low voice, Senior, there are 13 other shops with cultivators who are stronger than me. Boom! Xiaohua didn't say anything. He raised his right hand and a huge thunderous hand covered an area of more than 300 meters around him. Although the aura of this thunderous hand was restrained, the cultivators on the stone steps were clearly shocked. The dissatisfaction on their faces was replaced by puzzlement. They didn't dare to have any distracting thoughts. Crack. Following the descent of Xiaohua's hand of lightning, the 13 reefs were instantly extinguished like candles in the wind. At the same time, several tens of rows of stone steps appeared in the vicinity of the flight of stairs in midair. Moreover, there were many furious cultivators standing on the core stone steps. Damn it! An old man wearing a high hat and a wide belt cursed. Master Emerald Lake, do you want to die? Cough cough. Xiaohua lightly coughed and said in a clear voice, "This old man has something to talk to you about." You. The old man was a little stunned. However, when he saw Xiaohua's appearance, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Zhang Xiaohua." "Yes, that's me." Xiaohua glanced at him and said with a smile, "It seems like you're a member of the Heaven Alliance." "That's right. I'm the leader of the Wind Immortal Alliance, Wanderer Bayan." As the old man spoke, his figure moved slightly. Master Emerald Lake hurriedly shouted, "Senior Bayan, please wait a moment. Please let Senior Zhang finish speaking. If you want to die, feel free to attack." Xiaohua looked indifferently at Wanderer Bayan and said, "This old man's anger has been provoked several times today. This old man can't bear it anymore." Wanderer Bayan was not intimidated by Xiaohua. The corner of his mouth slightly raised as if he was laughing at something. However, at this moment his figure stiffened. He lowered his head and looked at a place. Then he looked at Xiaohua in disbelief. His eyes flashed with horror. Xiaohua had already heard the beautiful woman's voice transmission to Wanderer Bayan. He didn't say much and said, "Everyone, this old man will borrow Tong Lake City's auction house to sell a few things. The first is a complete spiritual root selection method. The second is a complete nascent soul cultivation method, from chi refinement to tribulation transcendence. The third is a primordial spirit cultivation method, from essence refinement to void. These 3 cultivation methods have all been modified by this old man. They are all cultivation methods for spiritual roots. The jade slips for each cultivation method are 100 top-grade crystals each. No bargaining." "What?" Wanderer Bayan exclaimed. What are you talking about?" "Master Emerald Lake." Xiaohua ignored Wanderer Bayan and said, "How about I ask the disciples of Tong Lake City to help this old man?" "Senior, don't worry." Master Bihu was very confident. He raised his hand, formed an incantation gesture, and hit the high platform. With a swish 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 sound, the water below the high platform began to churn. The water turned into tens of thousands of waves that surged out from the high platform and landed in front of Xiaohua's eyes. At the same time, the waves rushed towards the stone steps and the cultivators sitting below the stone steps. A wave appeared in front of every cultivator. Master Bihu then said, "Disciples, you don't need to help. Although there are many cultivators here, the 3 peerless cultivation methods are only worth 300 top-grade crystals in total. No one will be stingy. They only need to put the 300 top-grade crystals in the waves in front of them, and the crystals will be sent to you." Woo-woo. Not waiting for Master Bihu to finish speaking, there were already 2 flashes in the waves not far from Xiaohua. 600 top-grade crystals were revealed. Haha, not bad. Xiaohua flicked his sleeve and put away the top-grade crystals. The 6 jade slips were also placed in the 2 waves. As soon as the jade slips touched the waves, they disappeared. "Thank you, Senior Zhang." At the edge of the auction, 2 very high-pitched voices called out. Then they asked, "Master Emerald Lake, can we leave?" "Everyone, this auction is different from the previous ones. If anyone wants to leave, you can leave at any time." Master Emerald Lake hurriedly said, "This is also Senior Zhang's order. My Tong Lake City will absolutely not record any traces of cultivators." "All right, thank you for your trouble, Master Emerald Lake." While speaking, 2 figures flashed and disappeared in a moment. Ooh. Soon after, countless sobbing sounds came from the waves in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua didn't say anything more. With a wave of his sleeve, he put the crystals into his space and the jade slips inside. Senior Zhang. Wanderer Bayan still wanted to say something, but when he saw the waves in front of Xiaohua rapidly disappear, and the number of cultivators bidding on the stone steps to the left and below the stone steps to the left were decreasing, he didn't dare to say anything more. He hastily put the 300 top-grade crystals into the waves in front of him. A moment later, 3 jade slips appeared and the waves disappeared. Wanderer Bayan picked up the jade slips and scanned them with his divine sense. Wanderer Bayan sucked in a breath of cold air. His expression changed several times. He opened his mouth to ask something, but after a second thought, he rushed out of the auction. After a full hour, The waves in front of Xiaohua had decreased by 70%. To the side, Master Emerald Lake was also dumbfounded. His auction could accommodate a total of 160,000 cultivators bidding at the same time. After entering and using the transmission array, there should be 180,000 cultivators bidding in the auction. 70% was nearly 130,000 cultivators. Not to mention how many top-grade crystals Xiaohua had taken out. Just the jade slips Xiaohua had taken out were nearly 400,000. He really couldn't imagine where Xiaohua had gotten so many jade slips, and how much time he had spent inscribing cultivation techniques into them. Senior. Suddenly, a cultivator shouted. This junior didn't expect that Senior would sell cultivation techniques. So this junior used his spirit beast to bid for a lot of other things. Do you think this junior can use other things to exchange for your cultivation techniques? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, reward it, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 49-45. Of course. Xiaohua didn't hesitate at all. He smiled and said, this old man likes all kinds of strange things. You can give them all to me. Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Senior. The cultivator was overjoyed. How could he not know that this was Xiaohua's generosity? He immediately placed a storage ring on the water and shouted, this is what this junior brought to Tong Lake City this time. It contains the gains of this junior from this experience. Seeing that the storage ring was placed in front of Xiaohua, who accepted it without even looking at it and offered 3 jade slips, how could the remaining cultivators not know what Xiaohua was thinking? None of them dared to hesitate and place their storage rings on the table. This time, it was even faster. In just the time it took to eat a meal, the water in front of Xiaohua was gone. In the entire auction hall, there was no one else except Xiaohua, Master Bihu, and the other disciples of Tong Lake City. Senior. Master Bihu smiled bitterly and said, you suffered a big loss in the end. Not every cultivator who came to the auction hall could take out 300 top-grade crystals. It doesn't matter. Xiaohua shrugged and transmitted his voice. Only the heavens know whether I suffered a loss or not. This old man doesn't know, you don't know, and they don't know either. Master Bihu, thank you very much this time. This is a rejuvenation pill that this old man refined. When your lifespan is nearing its end, you can try to take one. This old man is going. After he finished speaking, Xiaohua's figure flashed and disappeared from where he stood. All that could be seen was a jade bottle floating in the air. Senior Zhang. Master Bihu knew that Xiaohua would leave, but he didn't expect that Xiaohua would leave just like that. He couldn't help but release his divine sense and call out loudly. Unfortunately, whether it was the auction hall or the 9th floor, there was no trace of Xiaohua. Alas! Knowing that Xiaohua had already left Tong Lake City, esteemed Master Bihu heaved a sigh and withdrew his divine sense. With a longing look on his face he whispered, Senior Zhang, you're really elusive. Afterwards, Master Bihu's gaze fell on the jade bottle. Only now did he remember what Xiaohua said before he left. His heart burned with passion and he couldn't help but open the jade bottle. However, there was no medicinal fragrance in the jade bottle that he usually smelled. When he took out the rejuvenation pill, he saw that its appearance was unremarkable and the surface of the pill was covered with runes that looked like seals. Master Bihu's hand trembled, and he almost dropped the rejuvenation pill on the ground. He hurriedly looked left and right. Seeing that there were no other people around, he took a deep breath and put the pill into the jade bottle. Then he stuck a few talismans on the jade bottle and carefully put it away. Guards. Master Emerald Lake raised his voice and shouted, City Lord. The scholar who was in charge of the auction immediately flew over and bowed. Do you have any orders? Master Emerald Lake thought for a while and ordered, Fu Hong, close the auction temporarily. Wait for my orders when it's reopened. The scholar named Fu Hong hurriedly asked, what about the auction that was arranged beforehand? What should we do? Inform them that everything will be postponed. Master Emerald Lake waved his hand and said, if they suffer any losses, they can report a number. Tong Lake City will compensate them. Yes, your subordinate understands. Fu Hong nodded and noted it down. Then he said in a low voice, your subordinate has just received a report that the shops on the 7th and 8th floors are completely deserted. 60% of the shops are closed. Your subordinate has also found out that 30% of the shops are empty. Alas, Senior Zhang is so calculative. Master Emerald Lake sighed and said, he was afraid that the Heaven Alliance would do something. He also guessed that there would be spies from the Dao Alliance in Tong Lake City. Therefore, he gave the cultivation method to the Dao Alliance through the auction. Hundreds of thousands of cultivation method jade slips have been sent to every corner of the Yilin continent with Tong Lake City as the center. Ha ha ha, Senior Zhang's wish has been fulfilled. Tong Lake City will definitely be engraved on the pillars of history. Come, pass down my order. Other than the disciples on duty, all the disciples will enjoy spiritual wine and spiritual fruits and rest for 3 days. Yes, your subordinate understands. Fu Hong smiled and hurriedly agreed. However, he did not rush to pass down the order. Instead, he continued to look at Master Emerald Lake with a smile. Master Emerald Lake was not surprised. After pondering for a while, he said, let all the teams report the names of their disciples. I will consider and distribute the cultivation methods. Thank you, City Lord. Thank you, City Lord. Fu Hong was overjoyed. He bowed and said, your subordinate will thank the City Lord on behalf of the disciples. In the future, our cultivation will not stagnate for months and years. If you want to thank someone, thank Senior Zhang. Master Emerald Lake sighed. Looking at the empty auction, he said, if not for Senior Zhang, how could we have obtained this cultivation method jade slip? However, don't expect too much. This modified cultivation method jade slip is actually a treasure book for the future disciples of the Heavenly Alliance. It may not be very effective for our current cultivation. I understand. I will tell the disciples. Fu Hong suppressed the ecstasy in his heart and replied, go. Remember, quickly send disciples to contact the Heavenly Alliance and report this matter. Master Emerald Lake waved his hand and said, I'm going to get drunk. Perhaps when I wake up, the Heavenly Alliance will send someone here. Master Emerald Lake suddenly stopped and revealed an inexplicable expression. Fu Hong did not dare to ask more. He stole a glance at Master Emerald Lake. Master Emerald Lake ignored Fu Hong and thought quickly, damn it, I have always regarded Senior Zhang as a kind person. But now that I think about it carefully, if Senior Zhang was malicious about Kong Jing's offense, he could have made some minor changes to the cultivation method he gave to the Peacock Manor. Elder Peacock gave this cultivation method to the Heavenly Alliance. If Alliance leader Long Shenxi found that the cultivation method of the Peacock Manor was different from other cultivation methods, then how would he deal with the Peacock Manor? Moreover, Kong Jing attacked Senior Zhang as soon as he arrived. Although his original intention was to capture him and claim credit, but looking at the situation, it was possible that he wanted to kill Senior Zhang. How could Senior Zhang forgive him so easily? Senior Zhang thought that Kong Jing was a junior, so he did not kill him. He only destroyed his bloodline Dharma body. But then he gave him many elixirs and told him that as long as he cultivated well, he could integrate with the Tao. Damn it, integrate with the Tao. So many cultivators dream of integrating with the Tao. Kong Jing's aptitude is ordinary. How could he integrate with the Tao? Could it be that Senior Zhang wanted to kill him by flattery again? Did he pretend that Kong Jing had excellent aptitude and gave him many elixirs and told him to cultivate at will? When he reached the high level, Kong Jing would not be able to control his realm and finally die from Qigong deviation. If that's the case, then Senior Zhang. When he thought of this, Master Bihu did not dare to think any further. He looked at the respectful Fu Hong, then waved his hand impatiently and said, go do as this old man says. I'll take my leave. Fu Hong bowed and flew out of the auction house. Master Bihu threw away his speculation and looked around the deathly silent auction house again. He almost could not believe that in this auction house that he had been managing for thousands of years, something that could change the situation of the Heaven Alliance, and even the Dao Alliance had happened just now. Venerable Master Bihu thought that Xiaohua had already left Tong Lake City, but he was wrong. Xiaohua teleported out of the auction house, and his figure and appearance instantly transformed. He passed through a few layers of restrictions and landed on the 5th floor. The place where Xiaohua's figure landed was at a fork in an aqua blue-colored small path. After slightly turning around, he entered another small path. At the end of this small path was a small pavilion. At this moment, there were 2 cultivators walking on the path, talking and laughing. They did not notice that there was a slightly handsome nascent soul cultivator behind them. Xiaohua entered the small pavilion and saw that it was a store that sold pill recipes. After looking through the jade slip that recorded the pill recipes, he very generously bought the majority of the pill recipes and then left the store. The owner of the store respectfully sent Xiaohua out, then pointed out the place that sold the method of refining tools. Only after that did he happily return. Xiaohua then walked around the 5th floor for less than an hour. On one hand, he bought various jade slips, and on the other, he checked out the aftermath of the auction house incident. He did not know whether it was because the 5th floor was too far away from the 9th floor, or because the disciples of Tong Lake City were very tight-lipped and kept it a secret, but almost nothing happened on the 5th floor. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it or give it a tip. Chapter 49-46. Xiaohua hesitated when he arrived at the teleportation formation leading to the 6th floor. He had already asked about the teleportation formation in Tong Lake City, and he knew that there were a total of 18 large-scale teleportation formations and 4 long-distance teleportation formations that could lead to various places in the Heaven Alliance. According to Xiaohua's previous plan, he would use the teleportation formation leading to Border City to the Jiepeng Immortal Alliance, and then use the other teleportation formations to head to Million Mountains. However, at this moment, he suddenly recalled the words of the Tong Lake City disciple when he first took the teleportation formation. At that time, the Tong Lake City disciple heard Xiaohua mention the failure of the Tong Lake Immortal Alliance and wanted to send Xiaohua to the 6th floor. Xiaohua didn't pay much attention to it before, but now that he thought about it, he was surprised. Therefore, he thought for a moment and stepped into the teleportation formation leading to the 6th floor. Upon entering the 6th floor, Xiaohua didn't see the situation around him at all. He was immediately surrounded by a group of cultivators. Xiaohua was stunned. He thought that the cultivators had discovered something, but when he saw the direction they were facing, he suddenly realized something. The cultivators surrounding Xiaohua weren't facing Xiaohua. Instead, they were facing him from the side. Everyone's gazes were focused on the front. In front of them, there were a dozen Tong Lake City disciples in armor blocking them. One of the disciples even said, "Fellow Taoists, please listen to what I have to say. The Tong Lake City's auction has been closed by the City Lord's order. It's meaningless for you to go to the 9th floor. We just want to take a look." A slightly tall cultivator shouted excitedly, "Why didn't you inform us earlier that something so important had happened in the Tong Lake auction house? Did you think that we didn't have enough crystals to bid?" That's right. We also want to take a look. Perhaps there will be a miracle." Sigh, fellow Taoists, I won't hide it from you. Not only did you not know, but even I, and my senior and junior brothers didn't know. The Tong Lake City disciple sighed and said, "I only found out about it after receiving the City Lord's order. Now everything is too late. Since Tong Lake City has benefited, you disciples will definitely benefit too. What are you worried about?" A cultivator shouted. "Rogue cultivators without roots like us are the most pitiful. A great opportunity was right in front of us, but we were still deceived by you." "I can't say that I'm deceiving him." The disciple didn't dare to let this cultivator continue and quickly said, "It's just that the transfer array to the 9th floor is full and can't be used for the time being. If you must go take a look, then please wait here for a moment. Fellow Taoist, can I trouble you to inquire?" Xiaohua whispered to a cultivator next to him, "What happened?" Sigh, another pitiful soul who missed out on an opportunity. That cultivator looked at Xiaohua and knew that he came up from the 5th floor. He sighed and said, "Do you know that you have already missed an unparalleled immortal opportunity?" "Ah, What do you mean, fellow Taoist? I've only just arrived at this place from the 5th level. How could I have missed such an unparalleled opportunity? Xiaohua was greatly shocked and asked hurriedly. That's right. If you didn't go to the 5th floor and directly went to the 9th floor to participate in the auction, you would have already stepped onto the path of cultivation to become a supreme cultivator. That cultivator really knew how to swindle. His words caused Xiaohua's heart to boil a little. Xiaohua pretended to be puzzled and asked, fellow Taoist, quick, what's going on? That cultivator vividly recounted the events that transpired in the auction hall. Several enthusiastic cultivators nearby also added oil and vinegar to the story, causing Xiaohua to be completely dumbstruck as he listened to the story. In this cultivator's words, Xiaohua was not only a senior who bestowed cultivation methods, but also a fool who bestowed all kinds of pill formulas, pills, and even peerless magic treasures. And this fool who came out of nowhere even raised a few mid-Mahayana cultivators who had been stuck at a bottleneck for hundreds of years to late Mahayana stage with a wave of his hand. After kowtowing, these late Mahayana stage cultivators immediately left Tong Lake City to find a place to transcend their tribulation. Fellow Taoist, don't you think this is an unparalleled immortal opportunity? In the end, that cultivator said with a pained expression, if we didn't stop at other places and arrived at the auction hall a step earlier, we would be. Just as he said this, the Tong Lake City disciple guarding the transportation array called out. All right, the transportation array to the 9th floor is already somewhat empty. Fellow Taoists, don't worry, come one by one. Seeing the Tong Lake City disciple move to the side, how could the cultivators, who had long been dazzled by the immortal opportunity, care about anything else? They all rushed into the transportation array. Although the cultivator who had spoken to Xiaohua was still quite a distance away from the transportation array, he still abandoned Xiaohua and rushed to the front of the crowd. Crazy. Xiaohua shook his head helplessly. Taking advantage of the fact that everyone was rushing to the transportation array, he quietly drifted away and left the noisy crowd. Easily leaving the crowd, he saw a wide scarlet waterway in front of him. The waterway flowed calmly towards various islands and pavilions. Xiaohua stepped on the waterway and casually walked for a while before stepping into a pavilion. The 6th floor of the store was clearly different from the 5th floor. It sold items used by nascent soul cultivators. Xiaohua casually bought some items and asked the cultivator who had greeted him. This old man wants to ask, the disciples of the Defeat You Immortal Alliance seem to be on the 6th floor. Where are they? Senior also wants to go to the Lost Land for adventure? The cultivator who was only in the essence refining stage asked with a smile. Ah? Hearing this cultivator's words, Xiaohua couldn't help but be shocked. Oh, could it be this junior said something wrong? Seeing Xiaohua's expression change, the disciple couldn't help but feel nervous and hastily asked. Xiaohua calmed down and waved his hand. It's nothing. How did you know? Seeing that Xiaohua didn't get angry, the disciple mustered up his courage and said, Senior may not know, but during the days when the Defeat You Immortal Alliance was in my Tong Lake City's 6th floor sale pavilion, many seniors came to inquire. Actually, it's nothing much. Under the changes in the world's spiritual energy, cultivators everywhere have reached a dead end in their cultivation. As long as there is a trace of life, there will be people who will go and probe it. Although the Lost Land has lost Tao techniques, perhaps the world's spiritual energy hasn't changed? When we get there, not only can we low-level cultivators be seniors, we can also cultivate. Isn't that killing two birds with one stone? If this junior wasn't qualified, this junior would also go to the sale pavilion to register. What? Do I still need qualifications? Xiaohua pushed the boat with the current. This old man heard about this matter on the 4th floor, so I came to take a look. This old man still doesn't know what qualifications are needed. Senior, are you a nascent soul or nascent soul cultivator? The disciple asked. Xiaohua ignored the disciple's question and said, You don't need to know what kind of cultivator this old man is. Just tell me what qualifications are needed. Yes, this junior was reckless. The disciple didn't dare to ask again and hurriedly replied. This junior heard that the Defeat You Immortal Alliance needs Jindan and nascent soul cultivators, and also needs nascent soul cultivators and spirit-returning cultivators. If you cultivate nascent soul, you can also cultivate nascent soul early stage. It's best if you are a male cultivator, not a female cultivator, unless the female cultivator's 5 elements escape technique is extremely outstanding. Oh, Xiaohua was surprised and asked, since we are going to the Lost Land, naturally the higher the cultivation the better. Why do we need these mid and low-level cultivators? The disciple replied, it seems that it's because it's extremely difficult to pass through some transmission tunnel in the Wuming mountain range. There is a restriction of magic power. If you are a low-level cultivator, it's easy to die, but if you are a high-level cultivator, it's possible to damage the transmission tunnel. However, this junior also heard a lot of rumors and can't be considered true. If senior wants to go, you can go to the Sail Pavilion to take a look. Oh right, this junior has a protective magic treasure here. Whether it's cultivating nascent soul or nascent soul, it can be used. Hee, forget about the magic treasure. This old man still wants to live for a few more days. Why would I go to the Lost Land for no reason? Xiaohua waved his hand and prepared to leave. Yes, what senior said is very true. Just now, this junior received news that an immortal has already bestowed the nascent soul cultivation method on the 9th floor's auction ground. Senior might as well go and take a look. Maybe there will be an immortal fate. The disciple hurriedly smiled and sent Xiaohua out of the shop. He said, if you can really get an immortal cultivation method, you won't be afraid of any changes in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Why would you go to the Lost Land? Haha. Xiaohua laughed. He already knew how the rumors came about. He said, this old man will go and see if there is any immortal fate. When this old man has an immortal fate, this old man will definitely come back and repay you generously. Thank you, senior. Thank you, senior. The cultivator said and muttered in his heart. This should be the 49th person. I don't know which senior will be able to get an immortal fate to repay me. In short, there is nothing wrong with casting a wide net. Xiaohua naturally wouldn't go back to look for some illusory immortal fate. He turned to the Scarlet Water Path, and after asking around a little, he found out the location of the Sail Pavilion. After following the flow of the water for a while, he saw a pavilion that really looked like a white sail in the distance. Xiaohua knew that this was the Sail Pavilion. Xiaohua stepped into the Sail Leader Pavilion and looked around. It was a bit different from the Chonglin Pavilion from before. The inside of this pavilion was similar to the hall of an ordinary house. There were several pillars supporting the pavilion. On the left side of the pillars, there were some fragrant spiritual herbs. Near the walls, there were some scarlet rattans. These rattans were like burning flames that covered a part of the wall, looking quite eye-catching. There were several jade tables in the hall, placed at the front and on both sides. There were some spiritual fruits and spiritual tea on the jade tables. Behind the jade tables, there were some praying mats. However, the spiritual fruits were somewhat damaged, the praying mats were somewhat messy, and even the spiritual tea was already cold. Is there anyone here? Xiaohua stood in the hall and didn't release his spiritual sense. Instead, he shouted, P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote a monthly vote, vote a recommendation vote, collect a collection, reward, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 49-47. Unfortunately, Xiaohua shouted a few times, but no one answered. Xiaohua helplessly released his spiritual sense, and when he saw that there was no one in the pavilion, he bitterly smiled. Just as he was about to turn and leave, a voice came from outside the pavilion. Damn it, it's really late. If we had gone earlier, the transportation formation wouldn't have been sealed, and we could have asked for an immortal fate. AI, that's right. Another regretful voice responded. This is a complete cultivation method from chi refinement to tribulation transcendence. Not to mention whether or not it can adapt to the change in the world's spirit energy. Even if we can obtain it and bring it back, we will have done a great service. Senior brothers, don't think too much. A clear voice like an oriole said. Let's think about how to deal with the task first. Originally, There were already 20 or so cultivators registered, but now they all ran away. What should we do? Just as they were talking, 4 handsome golden core cultivators walked into the sale pavilion. Among the 4 golden core cultivators, there were 2 male cultivators and 2 female cultivators. One of the male cultivators was tall and had thick eyebrows and big eyes, looking rather honest and kind. The other one was delicate and pretty, looking very clever. The 2 female cultivators were even more outstanding. One had a graceful figure, an oval face, snow-white skin, and a slightly arrogant expression. The other female cultivator had a plump figure, a round face, and yellow skin. However, her yellow skin gave off a faint luster, and her big watery eyes were filled with emotions. At this moment, she was grumbling at the male cultivator beside her with her slightly thick lips. This woman clearly didn't expect that there would be people in the sale pavilion. Just as she spoke, her eyes quickly turned, and her right hand involuntarily stretched out to cover her mouth. Ha! The delicate male cultivator was also stunned, but his eyes instantly turned, and he hastily took a few steps forward and bowed. By Junfeng of the Defeat Valley Immortal Alliance greets Senior. Junior Gaozhuang greets Senior. The tall disciple also hurriedly saluted. The plump female cultivator put down her hand, smiled and bowed. Junior Yu Biqiong greets Senior. The proud and aloof woman was always the last to greet. She bowed slightly and said in a tone that was neither haughty nor humble, Junior Yiyun greets Senior. Hee, where did you all go? Xiao Hua raised his hand to signal the 4 people to get up, and said with a smile, This old man thought that we went to the wrong place. Junior, and the others are going out for a walk. Oh, Junior and the others are going out to see the guests off. Bai Junfeng had originally wanted to say that he was going out for a walk, but when he saw the mess on the jade table, he hurriedly changed his words. These past few days, too many seniors have come to the sale pavilion to inquire. The 4 of us have been a bit busy, so after sending off a few seniors, we took a walk outside while we were at it. Senior, please take a seat. As Bai Junfeng spoke, he gave Gao Zhuang and the rest a look and said, Junior brothers and junior sisters, quickly tidy up the sale pavilion. In a while, there will be many seniors coming over again. Yes. Gao Zhuang replied and stepped forward to clean up. Yu Biqiong said with a smile, Senior, please wait a moment. Junior will prepare some fresh spirit fruits for Senior. I guarantee that Senior has never tasted them before. Don't be in such a hurry, don't be in such a hurry. Xiao Hua said with a smile. This old man just heard that you all came from the Failure Valley Immortal Union, and said something about going to the lost place. This old man was curious, so I came to take a look. Oh? Where did Senior hear it from? Bai Junfeng asked with a smile. Xiao Hua didn't hide anything and said, Just now in a shop on the 5th floor. Bai Junfeng's face suddenly lit up, and he looked at the proud figure of Yu Biqiong. The 2 of them exchanged a look, and Bai Junfeng became even more enthusiastic and said, Senior, since we've come here, then it must be fate. Senior, please take a seat and listen to Junior's explanation. No need. Xiao Hua said with slight impatience. This old man came out for a walk because my cultivation has been stagnant for a long time. If there aren't any opportunities in Tong Lake City, then this old man will go to other places to travel. Hee, since Senior wants to travel, why don't you go to the lost place to take a look? Yu Biqiong was originally going to take the spirit fruit, but after hearing Xiao Hua's words, she simply stopped and waved her hand at Yi Yin, indicating for her to take it. Xiao Hua said with a smile, Don't try to deceive this old man. It's not like this old man doesn't know about the lost place. It's also called the Forgotten Place. It's a place where Taoism is barren, so what's there to see? Sigh, Senior, you're muddle-headed. Yu Biqiong said with a regretful expression. Your impression is still stuck at the time before the spiritual chi of heaven and earth changed. Although Taoism is flourishing in my heavenly alliance now, but the path of cultivation has already come to an end. If there aren't any miracles, I'm afraid it won't be long before Taoism will decline and all Taoism will cease to flourish. Bai Junfeng struck while the iron was hot and said, Senior, we're all gold core cultivators, so we don't dare to talk about Senior's cultivation. However, I've heard from the nascent soul cultivators in the Immortal Alliance that they haven't made any progress in their cultivation for hundreds of years. Their lifespan is almost at its end. If there aren't any breakthroughs, I'm afraid all living beings will. At this point, Bai Junfeng didn't say anything more. He and Yu Biqiong both looked at Xiaohua without blinking, quietly observing Xiaohua's expression. Xiaohua's expression was as expected by the two of them, gradually giving birth to loneliness. After a while Xiaohua sighed and said, "Sigh, isn't that so? I'm still a rogue cultivator, so I can't compare to those who have sex or aristocratic family disciples. I'm really helpless. So senior, why don't you go to the lost place to take a look?" Yu Biqiong took advantage of the situation and said, "I heard that because the lost place is separated from my heavenly alliance by the Wuming mountain range, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth didn't affect that place. If we can go there, we can cultivate there quietly." While they were talking, Yi Yin had already brought over the spirit fruits and spirit wine, carefully placing them on a jade table, and then stood respectfully to the side without saying anything. "Senior, please sit down." Yu Biqiong stopped and said with a smile, "This is the special product of my Liu Immortal Alliance, the spirit fruit of separation and gathering. It's quite useful for nourishing the meridians, and the taste is also quite good. Senior, please try it first." Xiaohua agreed and sat down. Bai Junfeng hurriedly raised the wine pot and poured a cup of wine that looked a little yellow, and said, "Senior, please try this spirit wine. The taste is also different from ordinary." Xiaohua ate a few spirit fruits and drank a cup of spirit wine, and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I have a question. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, reward it, and thank all forms of support." Chapter 49-48. "Senior, if you have any questions, please ask." Yu Biqiong hurriedly replied, "I'll tell you everything I know. If the Lost Land has so many benefits, why don't you go there yourself? Instead, you come to Tong Lake City and Tong Qiong Immortal Alliance to find a fated person?" Xiaohua's mouth was full of disdain, as if he had found something strange. "Alas, senior, you don't know." Bai Junfeng sighed. "Do you think the cultivators of Tong Qiong Immortal Alliance don't want to go to the Lost Land? After the spiritual chi of heaven and earth changed, more than 10,000 cultivators have tried to pass through the innate restriction formation in Wuming Mountain. Unfortunately, according to the seniors who escaped, the transmission tunnel is too dangerous. Damn it." Before Bai Junfeng could finish, Xiaohua immediately stood up from the futon and said, "How can I go to such a dangerous place? This opportunity should be left to others." "Haha, senior, don't worry." Xiaohua's actions seemed to be within Bai Junfeng's expectation. He smiled and said, "Let me finish, senior, and then you can make a decision." "Okay then." Xiaohua hesitated for a moment, then sat down and picked up the spirit fruit to eat. "The transmission tunnel is too dangerous, and most of the seniors have died in it." Bai Junfeng continued to say, "However, according to the seniors who escaped, the transmission tunnel seems to have less effect on some cultivators with special divine powers and special constitutions, but they don't know what they are. So, the Immortal Alliance sent us to the Heavenly Alliance to find these special cultivators." "You don't even know what divine powers and special constitutions are. So why are you looking for cultivators?" Xiaohua asked with interest. "Of course, we don't have to think about it." Yu Biqiong hurriedly said, "The Alliance Master has prepared some tests. When all the seniors are gathered, we'll return to the Immortal Alliance and invite all the seniors to participate in the tests. So senior, please don't worry. If you can't pass the tests, you don't have to risk your life in Million Meng Mountain. If you can pass the tests, it means that you have the possibility of passing through the transmission tunnel in Million Meng Mountain. That's why we sent you to Million Meng Mountain. Of course, even if Senior doesn't pass the test, Lord Alliance Leader will definitely reward Senior generously to thank Senior for defeating the Immortal Alliance." Bai Junfeng continued to bluff. "If Senior's physique is suitable, then there's no need to talk about it. The Lost Land, I heard that the Daoist sects there have long since declined, And the strongest cultivators, there are only golden core cultivators. If Senior goes there, you'll definitely be a supreme existence. Even if the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in that place had also changed, Senior had left his Tao legacy there, and his name would still be passed down for 10,000 generations. Senior, think about it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Not every Taoist cultivator can encounter it. Xiaohua smiled and asked curiously, since none of you have been to the Lost Land and no one has come out of the Lost Land, who told you that the strength of the Tao sect in the Lost Land is only at the Golden Core realm? What Senior said makes sense. Bai Junfeng didn't panic at all and explained, this is indeed an inference made by the seniors of the Immortal Alliance, and there's no evidence. According to the seniors, there are two reasons why they made such an inference. First, if there are nascent soul cultivators in the Lost Land, then they must have the ability to discover the teleportation tunnel. Although the teleportation tunnel is extremely dangerous, a small number of cultivators can still pass through it. Therefore, there must be some cultivators who came to the Immortal Alliance over the years. But in fact, there has never been a single cultivator who came through the teleportation tunnel in Ming Mountains. This can only mean that the strongest cultivator in the Lost Land is at the Golden Core realm. What's the second reason? Xiaohua asked. The second reason, to be honest, no cultivator in the Immortal Alliance has ever entered the Lost Land. But as early as 1,000 years ago, before the spiritual chi of heaven and earth had changed, there were indeed some cultivators who entered the Lost Land through the teleportation tunnel. And they even started to build the Continental Teleportation Bridge. Unfortunately, they only sent out some information, and didn't succeed in building the Continental Teleportation Bridge. From this information, the Immortal Alliance also learned some simple information about the Lost Land. Junior doesn't know what this information is, but the seniors have seen it before, and this information is the basis of their inference. Is that so? Xiaohua pinched his chin, looked at Bai Junfeng and said meaningfully, you're right, but until now, how many people have you found? Bai Junfeng was a little hesitant, looked at Yu Biqiang, and then said with a wry smile. To be honest with Senior, there were a lot of nascent soul realm seniors who were willing to go to the Lost Land. But when they heard that the teleportation tunnel was so dangerous, they didn't have the courage to go. They even gave up the opportunity to establish a sect in the Lost Land and leave a mark in history. Yes. Yu Biqiang also said with some disdain. There were even some seniors who didn't even dare to sit in the sail pavilion when they heard about the Lost Land. How could they listen to such details like Senior? They really can't compare to the tens of thousands of nascent soul realm seniors of the Immortal Alliance. Although those seniors have fallen, they were brave enough to explore and create a new direction for the Immortal Alliance, for the future of the Heavenly Alliance's cultivators. Even if they have fallen, they still live in our hearts. Those cowardly seniors, even if they are alive, what's the difference between them and death? Yi Yin was originally listening at the side, but when she heard this, she frowned slightly, as if she couldn't listen anymore. Her body moved slightly and she said, Senior, please wait a moment, Junior will bring some spirit tea for Senior. Then, she floated to the back of the pavilion. Haha, after talking for so long. When Xiaohua heard this, he unconsciously stood up and said with a smile, so you haven't found a single cultivator. If that's the case, why am I here? Even if I want to go to the Lost Land, I just need to go to Million Mountain Meng and find some teleportation tunnel to go there. Why should I follow you? Isn't this a waste of time? Senior. Bai Junfeng hurriedly chased over and said, you don't know, but that teleportation tunnel is very hidden. Without my Lord Alliance Master personally opening it, others will never find it. Moreover, if you go to the Lost Land alone, won't you be weak alone? My Immortal Alliance will find some cultivators to go with you. Seeing that Xiaohua was about to leave, Yu Biqiang chased after him for a few steps, but stopped again, and her face showed disappointment. At this moment, outside the sail pavilion, a cultivator walked in and shouted, where are the disciples of the Immortal Alliance? Are you going to the Lost Land? Hee, another one who was tricked. Xiaohua smiled slightly but didn't stop. His gaze swept over the cultivator, and he muttered in his heart, and was about to walk out. However, when Xiao Hua's gaze swept over the cultivator's face, Xiao Hua suddenly froze in place as if he was struck by lightning. His face was filled with shock, and he looked at the newcomer in disbelief. In his heart he wildly shouted, How could it be him? He saw that this cultivator was at the middle nascent soul stage. His body was robust, and his face was like a full moon. His lips were red and his teeth were white. His eyes flashed with an intimidating aura. Between his slanted eyebrows, there was an indescribable self-confidence and arrogance that was like a supreme decoration. And it gave this cultivator a kind of infection for no reason. Although this cultivator's appearance was very unfamiliar to Xiao Hua, when Xiao Hua looked at him, another image involuntarily appeared in his mind. That image was completely different from the young cultivator's appearance. Instead, it was a short, even slightly hunchbacked, late foundation establishment stage old man with a face full of wrinkles. Although these two people's appearances were completely different, when Xiao Hua saw this cultivator, he immediately connected this cultivator with the old man. Bai Fei. Chang Bai Sex Bai Fei. Xiao Hua was surprised and thought to himself, how could it be him? Could it be that I'm mistaken? When I left the Dawn Rain continent, I saw him in the Thousand Red Mountains. At that time, he was only a late foundation establishment stage cultivator. How could he have reached the middle nascent soul stage in just a few hundred years? Oh, that's not right. He seems to be at the middle nascent soul stage, but he used a secret technique to conceal his cultivation method. In fact, he's already a late nascent soul stage cultivator. Furthermore, how could he have come to the Yilin continent from the Dawn Rain continent? Then the Million Meng Mountains. When he thought of this, Xiao Hua couldn't help but laugh. Only the heavenly Dao knew about one's fate. How could others guess it? He had traveled from the Dawn Rain continent to the three continents, and then from the three continents to the Yilin continent. Furthermore, he was already a grand ascension stage cultivator of the human race. Bai Fei had merely traveled from the Dawn Rain continent to the Yilin continent, and had only cultivated to the late nascent soul stage. What was so strange about that? Xiao Hua's astonishment naturally attracted the attention of the newcomer. The newcomer stopped and coldly glanced at Xiao Hua. He maintained a certain distance and didn't say anything. Fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and said with a smile, You should turn back. Don't be deceived by them. I originally wanted to go to the Lost Land to try my luck, but when I came here, I found that I didn't have a single fellow Taoist with me. Although I don't know much about the affairs of the crippled Immortal Alliance, I can tell the truth just by looking at how few people there are. Whether it's the truth or not, I'll only know after I hear it. There's no need for fellow Taoists to worry about that. The cultivator indifferently replied, If fellow Taoist wants to go, you can stay. If fellow Taoist doesn't want to go, you can leave. That's right, senior. Bai Junfeng hurriedly said, Look, another senior who understands. Why don't you reconsider? Now that the Heavenly Alliance has truly reached a dead end, going to the Lost Land is indeed a very good solution. On the other side, Yu Biqiong also stepped forward and respectfully said, Junior Yu Biqiong, welcome senior. If senior doesn't mind, please come in first. Junior will explain everything to senior. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Thank you for all of your support. Chapter 49-49. Xiao Hua wanted to leave and go to Wuming Mountain to find the transmission tunnel, but since he saw that the person was most likely Bai Fei, how could he let him go? He hesitated and nodded. Fine, I'll listen to how you're going to convince fellow Taoists Bai. I'm Bai Fei, how should I address you? The cultivator who had yet to confirm whether or not it was Bai Fei raised his eyebrows at this moment, as if he was not at a disadvantage at all. This question immediately exposed his identity. I'm Taoist Xiao. Xiao Hua smiled and cupped his hands. Greetings, fellow Taoist Bai. Ah, Taoist Xiao? Cultivator Bai was shocked, just as shocked as Xiao Hua. His figure was also stunned on the spot, his eyes staring straight at Xiao Hua as he sized him up. Moreover, a strange light appeared in his eyes, And in particular, a kind of faint and rather strange origin sense was also born from this cultivator, and landed on Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua was stunned and asked curiously, "What's wrong? Fellow Taoist Bai, have you seen I before?" "Oh, no wonder. I also felt that you looked familiar, as if I've seen you before." "Where are you from, fellow Taoist Bai?" "Where are you from, Taoist Xiao?" Bai Fei nodded. "I do know a Taoist Xiao, but his appearance is different from yours and his cultivation should not be as high as yours." "Damn it, who has the same Dharma name as I?" Xiaohua scolded jokingly. "I thought this Dharma name was unique in the Heavenly Alliance." No, I want to change my Dharma name." "Haha, that's not necessary." Bai Fei smiled. "Maybe I remembered wrongly, maybe the Taoist Xiao I know is you. I'm a rogue cultivator from Guangqing Immortal Alliance's Yuqiong Mountain. Near Yuqiong Mountain. I am the only one other than Shin Mingjiao. It's not a big deal that fellow Taoist Bai has heard of I's name. Maybe we've seen each other when we were traveling." Xiaohua said proudly. Moreover, the Alliance Master of the Guangqing Immortal Union passed by Yuqiong Mountain several times, and even paid I a visit. Seeing Xiaohua show off like this, Bai Fei lost interest all at once. He said smilingly, "So fellow Taoist is that famous Taoist Xiao. This Bai really has a thunderous reputation. It seems like we've met in the vicinity of Mount Yuqiong." "Hee, well said, well said." Xiaohua's interest was piqued and he said with a smile, "Since you and I are old acquaintances, and now that we meet in Tong Lake City, how can we not drink and chat merrily? Bai Junfeng, quickly bring out the spirit wine of the Defeat Oak Immortal Alliance." "Yes, Junior Bai Junfeng greet Senior Bai." Bai Junfeng replied and hurriedly bowed to Bai Fei. "Oh, your surname is Bai too? According to the secular world, we were a family 500 years ago." Bai Fei said with a smile as he helped Bai Junfeng up. "Senior must be joking." Bai Junfeng said with a smile. "That's what the secular world says." This junior is nearly 500 years old this year. If we were a family 500 years ago, this junior would be overjoyed. With a nascent soul cultivator like senior in the clan, this junior wouldn't need to worry about cultivation. "Come seniors, please take a seat. This junior will prepare the wine." Then Bai Junfeng shouted towards the outside of the pavilion, "Gao Zhuang, quickly bring some more spirit wine and spirit fruits over." "Okay." Gao Zhuang replied and waited for Xiaohua and Bai Fei to sit down. Yi Yin walked out with a tray in her hand with 2 jade pots on it. Just as Yi Yin walked out, her gaze landed on Bai Fei. Her proud and aloof face revealed a pleasantly surprised expression as she couldn't help but cry out, "Senior. Senior Bai?" "Ah." Bai Fei was also shocked. He turned to look at Yi Yun and hurriedly stood up. "So it's Miss Yi. You. Why are you in Tong Lake City?" "Oh, this Bai understands. Senior Bai, please take a seat." Yi Yun's enthusiasm far exceeded her previous treatment of Xiaohua. She walked a few steps forward and invited Bai Fei to sit down. She personally poured spirit wine for Bai Fei and said respectfully, "This junior is under the orders of the Immortal Alliance to come to Tong Lake City to find Heavenly Alliance cultivators who can pass through the Wuming Mountain Range. Could it be that Senior Bai is also interested in the Lost Land? Oh, this junior understands." At this point, Yi Yun's face also showed a sudden realization. However, as soon as she finished speaking, her face flushed red. Bai Fei's "this Bai understands," and now he said "this junior understands." It was as if they had a mutual understanding of each other. How could she not blush? Bai Junfeng took the other jade pot from Yi Yun's side and poured spirit wine for Xiaohua. Then he smiled and said, "Junior sister Yi, what's going on? Could it be that junior sister and this senior Bai are old acquaintances?" "Oh, I understand." At this point, Bai Junfeng was slightly stunned. He suddenly looked at Bai Fei as if he had thought of something. "Senior brother Bai." Yu Biqiong was a little confused. She shouted angrily, "What are you talking about? Yi Yun and Senior Bai seem to be old acquaintances. You said I understand, and I said, I understand. Naturally, they have a tacit understanding in their hearts. Why did you also say I understand? Junior sister Yu, it seems like you've forgotten." Bai Junfeng smiled and said, "Didn't junior sister Yi mention it when we came out of the Defeat Valley Immortal Alliance? Didn't she meet a senior with the surname Bai when she was training at the edge of the Wuming mountain range? Oh, that's right, that's right. At this point, Yu Biqiong also remembered and nodded. Junior sister Yi mentioned this matter a lot. She always said that Senior Bai was a righteous man. So this is the Senior Bai that junior sister Yi always mentioned. Sorry. I wouldn't dare. Bai Fei smiled and raised his hand. It was just a coincidence that day. Moreover, the so-called help was nothing more than a small matter for me. It's really nothing. Any cultivator of the Dao sect would lend a helping hand if they encountered such a matter. Of course not. Bai Junfeng echoed from the side. Junior sister Yi clearly described the situation that day. That day was really dangerous. And if it wasn't for Senior's profound cultivation, I'm afraid junior sister Yi would not be able to stand here safely. Senior Bai. Yi Yun's face was slightly red. She raised her wine cup and said shyly, I left in a hurry that day. This junior didn't have the chance to thank you. Today, I'll borrow this wine to thank Senior for saving my life that day. Miss Yi is too polite. Bai Fei smiled and took the wine cup. As he spoke, he drank it in one gulp. After drinking the spirit wine, Bai Fei asked with concern, Miss Yi, where's your Qing Yuan? I remember that it was seriously injured that day. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Chapter 4950. Thank you, Senior, for your concern. Qing Yuan is fine now. As Yi Yun spoke, she pointed at the spirit storage ring on her left hand. A clear light gushed out and a Qing Yuan flew out from within. The blue yuan landed in midair and did not cry out like the other birds. Instead, it stood there proudly with only one leg on the ground while the other leg was hidden within its feathers. Furthermore, the bird's head looked around proudly and its appearance of self-admiration was exactly the same as Yi Yun's from before. Qing Yuan, quickly greet Senior Bai. Yi Yun hurriedly whispered, he was the one who saved us that day. The elixir you took was given by Senior Zhang. Caw. Qing Yuan let out a clear cry, as if it knew Bai Fei. It nodded at Bai Fei and then looked around again. However, when Qing Yuan's gaze swept past Xiaohua, it paused for a moment before leaving. She's a little shy. Yi Yun hurriedly explained to Bai Fei. It's fine. Bai Fei smiled and waved his hand. Even a spiritual pet has its own freedom and its own preferences. Don't worry about it, just keep it. Yes, Senior. Yi Yun nodded apologetically at Bai Fei and kept Qing Yuan into the spirit storage ring. Then the few of them reminisced and whispered about some things. Xiaohua sat at the side dully. The others treated him as if he was nothing. Xiaohua was not in a hurry and just listened quietly. However, after a while, he understood some things. This Bai Fei probably had some opportunities to go from Donrain continent to Yilin continent, and saved Yi Yun's life when they passed through Wumeng mountain range. As for why Bai Fei came to defeat Yu Immortal Alliance, it must be for the same reason as him, which was to return to Donrain continent. Since Bai Fei had the experience of passing through Wumeng mountain range, he might as well follow him. However, looking at Bai Fei's proud look and thinking about Bai Fei's actions during the sword battle, Xiaohua could not help but sigh. The heavens were fair, and he was definitely not the only lucky person in this world. Whether it was Donrain continent, Yilin continent or the three continents, there were lucky people. They all relied on opportunities that ordinary people could not reach and reached the peak of the world. Bai Fei was obviously one of them. Spiritual Master Xiao, please. While Xiaohua was distracted, Bai Fei suddenly raised his wine cup and gestured. All right, fellow Taoist Bai, please. Xiaohua smiled faintly, raised his wine cup, and drained it in one gulp. Everyone seemed to have finished exchanging pleasantries and Yi Yun asked, Senior White, did you come to the sail pavilion to explore the lost land? Bai Fei nodded and replied, Miss Yi is right. Actually, when I met Miss Yi all those years ago, I was heading to the lost lands to gain experience and tempering. It's just that I didn't get permission from the Alliance Master of Defeat Oak Immortal Alliance, so I didn't use the teleportation tunnel. I want to try going in from other places in the Wuming mountain range. Senior White, you're really bold. Yu Baiqiong stuck out her tongue and said, "Without a teleportation tunnel, even my Lord Alliance Master wouldn't dare to go there." "That's right." Bai Fei smiled and said, "I suffered a great loss in Wuming Mountain Range. When I saw that the situation was not good, I hurriedly turned back and met Miss Yi. And these days, I went to many places to gain experience. Recently, I felt that under the changes in the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, there was no way out for cultivation, so I thought of the Lost Lands. As soon as I arrived in Tong Lake City, I heard that the Defeat You Immortal Alliance was looking for a fated nascent soul cultivator, so I came here. It seems that Senior White is determined to enter the Lost Lands." Bai Junfeng said, intentionally or unintentionally glanced at Xiaohua and asked, "Since that's the case, I don't need to tell Senior White about the Defeat You Immortal Alliance's intentions, right?" "No," Bai Fei said very cautiously. "I still want to hear more. I'll have to trouble you." "No problem." Bai Junfeng smiled, looked at Yi Yin and said, "I just told Spiritual Master Xiao once, and now my mouth is dry. Why don't I let Junior Sister Yi tell Senior White? Does Miss Yi have time?" Bai Fei was very polite, looking completely different from the hunchbacked, wrinkled old man from before. Yi Yin smiled, nodded and said, "Junior is very willing to serve Senior White." After that, Bai Junfeng gave Yu Biqiong a meaningful glance, and the two of them walked out of the sale pavilion. The simple and honest Gao Zhuang came over and stood by Xiaohua's side, whereas Yi Yin explained to Bai Fei the plan to defeat the Immortal Alliance this time. Yi Yin might not have said as much as Bai Junfeng, but the beautiful woman's explanation was naturally different from the stinky man's. Her breath was like an orchid, and her smile was like the sun. Even Xiaohua, who was watching and listening at the side, was slightly moved. Looking up at Gao Zhuang, who was standing beside him like a block of wood, he couldn't help but drink by himself. After Yi Yin finished speaking, Bai Fei frowned and thought for a moment, then asked, "I wonder what the Defeat You Immortal Alliance's test is? And when is it?" "Junior is not too sure about this," Yi Yin said apologetically. "According to what Junior knows, the Alliance Master values this matter very much, and has already urged several times. I'm afraid it will be in the last few years. However, there are not many nascent soul cultivators who are willing to go to the lost place, and it seems that there are even fewer cultivators who can pass the test. Therefore, Junior is worried that this trip to the lost place will be successful." While they were talking, Bai Junfeng and Yu Biqiong hurriedly walked in. Their gazes fell on Xiaohua and Bai Fei, and they said apologetically, "Seniors, Junior has just received the Alliance Master's order to go to the border city of the World Peng Immortal Alliance to wait for orders. I don't know if the two seniors have thought it through, but if you are willing to go to the Defeat You Immortal Alliance with us, then you will have to leave now. Of course, if the two seniors are not willing, Junior will not dare to force you. Junior thanks Senior for coming to the sale pavilion." "This?" Xiaohua pretended to hesitate. "Could it be that the two of us have to go?" Yi Yin, who had not spoken to Xiaohua until now, said, "Senior, we have already sent several nascent soul cultivators to the Defeat You Immortal Alliance. This time, only the two of you will be going to Tong Lake City. Moreover, since you are going to the border city to wait for orders, there will definitely be nascent soul cultivators from other places. Senior, please be at ease." "Taoist Master Xiao," Bai Fei said with a smile. "Now that the Yilin continent's weather has changed greatly, it is no longer suitable for us Taoist cultivators to cultivate. Going to the lost place is actually a very good idea. You heard it just now. I have wanted to go take a look a few years ago. Now that the Alliance Master of the Immortal Alliance has arranged it, and there are many fellow Taoists with us, it is much more stable. If we miss this opportunity, I'm afraid we won't have it in the future. Anyway, I have already decided to go. What about you?" "This old man is still not sure," Xiaohua said hesitantly. "This old man feels that there is something fishy about this matter." "How about this?" Bai Fei stood up and said, "In any case, we can only go to the lost place after we arrive at the Defeat You Immortal Alliance. Why don't fellow Taoists come with us first and think about it carefully on the way? If fellow Taoist doesn't want to go, you can leave at any time. How about it?" "And this idea is not bad." Xiaohua smiled and stood up, replying, Let's do as fellow Taoist Bai says. Good. Bai Junfeng clapped his hands and said, this junior will go and arrange the transportation array to Border City. This old man will go with you. Xiaohua probed. Bai Junfeng hurriedly waved his hand and said, how can that be? Senior is a guest of our Defeat You Immortal Alliance. How can this junior let senior help? All right. Xiaohua nodded. Yu Biqiong immediately walked over and said with a smile, just now, I heard from senior that you are a loose cultivator of the Guangqing Immortal Alliance's Jade Mountain. This junior also went to Jade Mountain in the early years. I wonder how the scenery of Jade Mountain is now. Jade Mountain was something that Xiaohua casually made up. How could there be a Jade Mountain in the Guangqing Immortal Alliance? If Yu Biqiong didn't have anything to say, then she was intentionally probing. Xiaohua didn't mind and casually talked about some scenery. At the same time, he also talked about some things about Shenming cult that he heard from the banished monarch. At the same time that Yu Biqiong nodded repeatedly, Xiaohua noticed that although Bai Fei was talking to Yi Yun, he had been listening to him attentively. Obviously, he didn't completely trust him. Xiaohua laughed in his heart. This Bai Fei must be crazily scheming in his heart right now. If this Xiao is Xiaohua, this Xiao will definitely avoid using my Taoist name after knowing that he is Bai Fei. I won't say Taoist Xiao. But if this Xiao is not Xiaohua, how can there be two cultivators with the same Taoist name in this world? Furthermore, this Xiao's cultivation was unfathomable back then, which made him deeply afraid. Since he could come to the Yilan continent, and this Xiao disappeared many years ago, it's not strange for me to appear here now. He must have already suspected something. Of course, if this Xiao doesn't call himself Taoist Xiao, nothing will happen. But, does this Xiao care about this? In just the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, Bai Junfeng turned back and said with a smile on his face, this junior has already contacted Tong Lake City. From the 6th level, there is a transportation passage directly to the underground transportation Grand Array. That super-long transportation Grand Array to the Guangqing Immortal Alliance will be activated after half a smoke. We can go there now. This old man has never enjoyed such treatment before, Xiaohua said in a slightly exaggerated manner. To actually go directly to the underground transportation Grand Array from the 6th level. These two seniors are the honored guests of my Tong Yu Immortal Alliance. Serving these two seniors well is my responsibility. Bai Junfeng replied without blushing or skipping a beat. Xiaohua had long been cursing in his heart. He had already heard clearly that there was no such thing as an alliance head token. It was just Bai Junfeng discussing with Yu Biqiong via voice transmission. He felt that since a modified cultivation technique had appeared in Tong Lake City, there wouldn't be any more nascent soul cultivators who would be willing to go to the Lost Lands in the future. Since that was the case, it was better to bring him and that Bai Fei back to the Immortal Alliance. As for the transportation passage, it was purely because Bai Junfeng was afraid that he and Bai Fei would hear the news that had already spread in Tong Lake City. He was afraid that he or Bai Fei would retreat. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 49-51. However, Bai Junfeng was overthinking things. Xiaohua didn't know what the others were thinking, but he knew his and Bai Fei's purpose. They wanted to return to the Dawn Rain continent, to return to the lost land mentioned by the Heaven Alliance cultivators. They didn't know about the modified cultivation method, but even if they did, the modified cultivation method wouldn't stop them from returning to their homeland. When they arrived at the transportation channel on the 6th floor, the previously packed transportation channel was now empty. The transportation channels on the 7th, 8th, and 9th floors were all closed, and only the downward transportation channel was open. When Bai Junfeng showed a token, the Tong Lake City disciple didn't even bother to look at Xiaohua and the others and invited them into the transportation channel. With a flash of light, the pressure of the transportation channel disappeared, and Xiaohua and the others were in a space less than 100 feet wide. There was only one transportation channel in this space, and there was no one else except Xiaohua and the others. Even the guards of Tong Lake City weren't there. Seniors, this way please. Bai Junfeng seemed to be very familiar with this place. He raised his hand and let everyone out of the space through the light curtain. As soon as they were out of the space, a series of rumbling sounds came. Xiaohua looked up and couldn't help but be speechless. This was a space that was dozens of acres large, and it was filled with transportation channels of various sizes. Each transportation channel had a restriction that was used to isolate sound and the power of the transportation channel. Even so, the rumbling sound still came from everywhere and rippled throughout the entire space. In particular, the residual power of the transportation channel also came along with the rumbling sounds, tearing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the entire space. At this time, there weren't many cultivators in the entire underground transportation channel, and only a few Tong Lake City disciples were on duty. When Bai Junfeng led everyone to the innermost transportation channel, which was more than 100 feet wide, Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh again. This was because there was a faint terrifying aura coming from this transportation channel. A pitch-black vortex gradually formed in the activated transportation channel, and the entire transportation channel was like a huge space beast with its bloody mouth wide open, waiting for its prey to appear. Naturally, there were disciples of Tong Lake City in front of the teleportation bridge. However, their guard was similarly lax. When they saw the token that Bai Junfeng took out, they put it away and gave each of Xiaohua and the others a teleportation talisman. Then they signaled for them to enter the teleportation formation. When Xiaohua and the others activated the teleportation talisman, the Tong Lake City disciples also activated the teleportation array. Rumble. Huge rumbling sounds came from all around the teleportation array. The teleportation array, which had already turned into a void, produced thick lightning, and a kind of teleportation pressure that seemed like the sky was falling and the earth was rending rushed over from all directions. Whoosh! The activated teleportation talisman immediately produced a black and white screen of light that covered the entire area. The lightning in the void turned into a black and white wave that rolled, and the figures of Xiaohua and the others disappeared. The teleportation took a very long time, almost half a day. Moreover, this teleportation array was different from the teleportation arrays that Xiaohua had encountered before. The normal teleportation channel's pressure was generally stable, but this teleportation channel's pressure was either big or small. When it was big, it would almost squash people, and the transmission talisman would almost be crushed. When it was small, it would almost make people fly, and the transmission talisman would also have a kind of flying feeling, which made Xiaohua feel uncomfortable. However, to Xiaohua, who had experience in breaking through the barrier, this was merely a feeling of discomfort. It was not like Bai Junfeng and the other Golden Core cultivators who wanted to live or die. What surprised Xiaohua was that Bai Fei, who had not revealed his strength before, also felt like he was handling a butcher's cleaver with ease in this vast teleportation channel. He did not feel particularly uneasy or uneasy. Seeing the teleportation pressure gradually extinguish the brilliance of the teleportation talisman like a large hand, Yi Yun and the others' figures gradually collapsed in the teleportation array. In the void near Xiaohua and the others, in the channel that seemed to be radiating light in all directions, tens of thousands of rings of light suddenly surged out. These rings of light were like swimming fishes, and also like brilliant fireworks. Then the entire ring of light shattered above Xiaohua and the others' heads. When Xiaohua and the others felt their bodies lighten, the shattered rings of light instantly reformed, and another teleportation array emitted a powerful rumbling sound. Welcome everyone to Border City. Without waiting for Xiaohua and the others to come out of the teleportation array, a seemingly graceful female cultivator was already at the teleportation array's position. She lightly opened her red lips and welcomed them with a smile. After coming out of the teleportation array, Bai Junfeng, Yu Biqiong, Yi Yun and Gao Zhuang's legs slightly weakened, and they actually showed signs of being unable to stand steadily. Moreover, Yi Yun's figure swayed, as if she was about to fall. Bai Fei hurriedly raised his hand and supported Yi Yun, a trace of concern in his eyes. Many thanks, Senior. Yi Yun's face was somewhat pale as she said in a low voice. However, Bai Fei did not pay attention to Yi Yun. Instead, there was a trace of astonishment on his face as he looked at Xiao Hua, who was completely fine. Bai Junfeng stood for a moment and regulated his true essence. Then he opened his mouth and said with a bitter smile, "I've long heard that the teleportation array from Tong Lake City to Border City is the strangest. Not to mention the long distance, even the void through which the teleportation passes is different from other places. Even Golden Core cultivators can't withstand the changes in the teleportation pressure inside. It seems that this is indeed the case. Taoist Master Xiao is indeed a hidden expert." Bai Fei looked at Xiao Hua and said thoughtfully, "In the face of such a fluctuating teleportation pressure, it is as if he is taking a stroll in the park. This Bai is truly impressed." Xiao Hua smiled and looked at Bai Fei as he replied indifferently, "We are both mid-nascent soul stage cultivators. Isn't fellow Bai the same? What fellow Bai wants to say is also what I want to say. If fellow Bai admires I, then naturally he admires himself. However, I have to admire fellow Bai's ability to use words and form sentences. It is truly unfathomable." Bai Fei raised an eyebrow, not understanding what was wrong with what he had just said. Yu Biqiong, on the other hand, chased away the dizziness in her Naiwan palace with great difficulty. She then smiled bitterly and said to the two of them, "Both of you have profound cultivation and are respected by us juniors. If the two seniors can't even deal with this level of teleportation pressure, then there is no need to even mention the teleportation tunnel." By the time the six of them had rested for a while, other cultivators had already arrived from various teleportation arrays. These cultivators had varying cultivation bases, but all of them had a trace of excitement on their faces. As soon as they came out of the teleportation array, they immediately rushed into Border City under the greetings of the disciples of Border City. The female disciple who had welcomed Xiao Hua and the others earlier was still waiting patiently at the side. Seeing that everyone had already recovered, she smiled like a flower and said, "Seniors, welcome to Border City. Our Border City has all kinds of things that seniors want. In order to ensure that seniors can smoothly purchase things in our Border City, please allow Junior to give seniors a brief introduction." "Wait." Bai Juanfeng's gaze retracted from the nearby cultivators and looked at the pale-faced Yi Yun. He asked, "Is there a quiet room next to the teleportation formation for us to rest? We came from Tong Lake City and the teleportation distance is too far. We have yet to recover and would like to rest for 2 hours." "Oh, so seniors came from Tong Lake City. No wonder." The female disciple replied considerately, "Senior, please. Border City's geographical location is a bit special, so we have already considered this aspect. There is a quiet room next to the teleportation formation." Xiao Hua looked at the nervousness on Bai Juanfeng's face, and a trace of a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. On the other hand, Bai Fei didn't notice Bai Juanfeng's unnaturalness and only looked at Yi Yun with concern. Yi Yun responded with a smile that was somewhat apologetic. Everyone entered the quiet room. Yi Yun, Gao Zhuang, and the others sat cross-legged to adjust their breathing. Bai Fei saw that Yi Yun's face was gradually turning red, and his heart was slightly at ease. He turned to look at Xiao Hua and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist, do you know other escape techniques besides the 5 elements escape technique?" Xiao Hua was stunned and somewhat puzzled. He asked back, "Why do you ask this, fellow Taoist Bai?" "Because the 5 elements escape technique is restricted in the Wuming Mountain range." Bai Fei replied, "That day, I suffered a great loss because of this and almost died inside. So I want to remind fellow Taoist." "Damn it." Xiao Hua cursed in a low voice and said, "No wonder even the Alliance Master of the Defeat Valley Immortal Alliance didn't dare to enter easily. If that's the case, I'm afraid even the Heavenly Alliance's Lord Long Shenxi will hesitate." "Yes, I'm afraid so." Bai Fei nodded and said, "As far as I know, the reason why the lost place was lost is greatly related to the innate restriction formation in the Wuming Mountain range. Otherwise, with the Heavenly Alliance's Alliance Master's all-knowing ability, how could he not go to the lost place to have a look?" "It's not just that, right?" Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and said, "I heard that there are a group of mysterious witchcraft cultivators in the Wuming Mountain range. Their methods are connected to ghosts and deities, and they can even penetrate the 9 underworlds. Many of their cultivation techniques are aimed directly at the soul, and it's impossible to guard against them. Seems like fellow Taoist knows a lot about the Wuming mountain range. Bai Fei probed. No wonder fellow Taoist wants to go to the lost place. Since fellow Taoist Bai wants to go to the lost place again, I presume that you've already learned other escape techniques besides the 5 elements escape technique? Xiaohua asked, not answering the question directly. Of course, Bai Fei said proudly. If not, why would I dare to take the risk again? Then fellow Taoist, Xiaohua said in a low voice, you and I met first, and I'm sure other fellow Taoists will come to meet us in the future. Can you and I work together and support each other in the transmission tunnel? Of course I can. Bai Fei replied without hesitation. But, what benefits does this Bai have? Damn. Xiaohua had not heard Bai Fei say this for hundreds of years. Today, when Bai Fei said this, Xiaohua immediately felt like he was in the Sword Dao battle again. He could not help but curse in his heart. Even if I can't tell that you're Bai Fei, based on what you said in your name, I can conclude that you must be Bai Fei from the Changbai sect. Only a cultivator like you who blindly cultivates and uses unscrupulous means to achieve his goal can reach the late stage of the nascent soul realm in these hundreds of years. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and Chapter 4952. Although Xiaohua's heart was filled with disdain, he still respected Bai Fei's choice. After all, there were hundreds of things in the world, and there were tens of thousands of people. It was impossible to expect others to consider others as much as oneself. It was already quite good that Bai Fei did not do evil things. Therefore, Xiaohua cautiously transmitted his voice. Then what benefits does fellow Taoist Bai want? The benefits this Bai wants. I'm afraid you can't give me. Bai Fei replied proudly. Then how do you and I work together? Xiaohua asked somewhat apprehensively. As the two of them were exchanging voice transmissions, Bai Junfeng suddenly got up and looked at Xiaohua and Bai Fei. He nodded apologetically and left in a hurry. Bai Fei looked at Bai Junfeng's back and sent a sound transmission. Taoist Master Xiao. I'm guessing that after Bai Junfeng returns, he will definitely receive another message from the alliance leader of the Defeat You Immortal Alliance, requesting us to continue teleporting. Moreover, he will definitely teleport to a place controlled by the Defeat You Immortal Alliance. Do you believe me? Xiaohua was dumbfounded. He looked at the door of the quiet room, then looked at Yi Yun and the others. He shook his head slightly. How is this possible? We just arrived at Border City according to the Alliance Master's message, and we haven't even left the teleportation formation yet. How can we teleport again? I don't believe it. Alright, go ahead and watch. Bai Fei said confidently. As for the alliance you mentioned, this Bai agrees in principle. As for the benefits, this Bai will tell you when we meet. The reason I'm telling you this now is to let you know that joining hands with me is the best decision you've ever made in your life. How can this guy be so arrogant? Seeing Bai Fei like this, Xiaohua couldn't help but be even more surprised. In fact, he already suspected that this Xiao is Xiaohua in his heart, but he didn't directly ask. Perhaps he wants to distance himself from this Xiao, and doesn't want this Xiao's previous kindness to become a fetter, but he should also understand that this Xiao's cultivation is definitely not inferior to his. Could it be that he still had something to rely on? What kind of shocking fortuitous encounter did Bai Fei have in the past few hundred years? Seeing Xiaohua pondering, Bai Fei smiled faintly and said no more. After a while, Xiaohua finally nodded and said, Alright, I will wait and see. It was unknown whether it was Bai Fei's foresight or Bai Junfeng's insistence on cooperating with Bai Fei, but just as Xiaohua finished speaking, Bai Junfeng came in from outside the quiet room. His sweaty face was filled with apologies. Bai Junfeng bowed to Xiaohua and Bai Fei in embarrassment. Seniors, I'm truly sorry. This junior just left, because there was a commotion in the communication Dharma artifact. This junior has already received the alliance leader's order, requesting us to immediately set off. We cannot stay anywhere else and must head directly to Worry-Free Manor. Bai Fei smiled slightly. He glanced at Xiao Hua and said, I don't care. Moreover, looking at Daoist Xiao, you should be fine as well. We'll have to see if Miss Yi and the others can continue to teleport. After Yi Yin and the others heard this, they had already opened their eyes. They looked at Bai Junfeng in confusion. Yu Biqiong's eyes revealed a look of understanding. She then said, Junior sister, yes, situation is not good. Senior brother Bai, can you wait for a while? Bai Junfeng smiled and said, Of course we can wait for a while. Moreover, I've already asked the disciples of Border City. Although there are dozens of teleportation channels to Worry-Free Manor, they are not connected together. Most of the time, we still have to use flying shuttles. Moreover, these teleportation channels are not very far away. I believe that junior sister Yi will be fine after resting. That's good. Yu Biqiong looked at Gao Zhuang, who had been silent all this time, and asked, Senior brother Kuang? I'm fine. Gao Zhuang waved his hand. All right. Then let's rest for another hour. Bai Fei made the final decision. Yi Yin was a little embarrassed and said, I've delayed everyone. It's fine, it's fine. Bai Fei's eyes revealed tenderness and said, Miss Yi, this is probably an old injury. You need to cultivate more. Sigh. Yi Yin sighed. She didn't say anything else and closed her eyes to adjust her breathing. After an hour, Bai Junfeng took Xiao Hua and the others to the Worry-Free Manor. In the next few months, just as Bai Junfeng said, and just as Bai Fei expected, none of the teleportation channels were in big cities. Moreover, the locations of the teleportation channels were relatively remote. The distance between the teleportation channels was sometimes relatively long. It was very common to fly for more than 10 days by flying shuttles. Summer turned to autumn, and winter gradually approached. The fallen leaves in the nearby mountains had already turned yellow, and the unknown wild fruits were also gradually rotting. In the distance, a mountain peak that wasn't too tall appeared on the horizon amidst the fiery red. Seniors. Seeing the fiery red, Bai Junfeng's heart finally relaxed. He raised his hand and pointed, and said with a smile, This is the Worry-Free Manor. I'm afraid that we're the first batch of disciples to arrive at the manor. Bai Fei had already become the leader. He smiled and said, We flew east and west, and the teleportation channels we passed through didn't seem to be in a straight line. In the middle, we use flying shuttles to fly for so long, and you're actually the first batch? Bai Junfeng, how many batches of disciples did your Defeat Oak Immortal Alliance send out? Bai Junfeng's face didn't show any embarrassment. He replied, I'll let seniors know. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble and for our safety, Junior had no choice but to rack his brains to find a stable teleportation route. I didn't discuss it with seniors before, so I hope seniors can understand. It's fine. Xiao Hua was originally sitting cross-legged on the flying shuttles, modifying the primordial spirit cultivation technique. At this time he waved his hand and said, Anyway, we're not familiar with the Defeat Oak Immortal Alliance. Through these few months of understanding, Bai Junfeng knew that Xiao Hua was the easiest to talk to. Hearing Xiao Hua's words, the corner of his mouth rose into a smile. However, just as his smile appeared, rumble. A loud thunderclap sounded from the 9 heavens. Then, in the space of hundreds of thousands of miles, hundreds of millions of lightning bolts were born. These lightning bolts turned into pearls in the thunder, and a will that swept through the heaven and earth like a silver river suddenly fell from the sky, enveloping the entire heaven and earth. Everything came to a standstill in the presence of this will. Seeing the familiar scene, Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. He looked up at the sky in disbelief, where the lightning had turned into multicolored clouds. He wondered in his heart, What's wrong with the Tao sovereign? Could it be that he's thinking of me again? Following Xiao Hua's surprise, in the sky, beyond the 9 heavens, an old man with a simple appearance, wearing an 8-trigram robe and a Tao crown, stepped on a green lotus and walked down step by step. Tao ancestor? The old man's indomitable figure appeared. When Xiao Hua's gaze fell on that unclear appearance, although the old man's eyes were tightly closed and did not open, an inconceivable thought was born in Xiao Hua's heart. This is the Tao ancestor? The Tao ancestor walked down from the 9 heavens, endless multicolored light flashing around his body. Within the multicolored light, there were also endless illusions. Some were men plowing and women weaving, some were moving mountains and creating seas, and so on. Ethereal immortal music came out from these illusions. No, that's not right. As soon as the Tao ancestor thought of this, Xiaohua's gaze once again glanced at the old man's flickering appearance. Inadvertently, an extremely familiar face flashed past Xiaohua's mind. Xiaohua couldn't help but scream madly in his heart. This is Laozi, the saint who disappeared. Why is he here? Unfortunately, this Tao ancestor's phantom was the will of heaven and earth. He didn't answer Xiaohua's exclamation. However, this Tao ancestor was the same as the previous Tao sovereign. His originally closed eyes opened, and 2 rays of light flashed from his eyes. One was as black as the night, and the other was as white as the day. The 2 rays of light fell on Xiaohua's body. The Tao ancestor opened his mouth, and a voice like the collapse of mountains and earth rang out. Good. Along with this voice, the Tao ancestor raised his hand and grabbed, and a horsetail whisk appeared. The horsetail whisk swept towards the sky, and the sky that was originally filled with thunder and lightning instantly became clear. Thousands of stars, as well as the sun and moon, appeared. As the horsetail whisk swept past, thousands of stars fell into the Buddha's dust, and billions of starlight settled in one place. Then the Tao ancestor opened his mouth, and with a puff, the sun, moon, and stars, even heaven and earth fell into it, condensing into a seed of light and shadow. Tao seed. Xiaohua was stunned. This light and shadow was so familiar. It was exactly the same as the Tao seed bestowed by the Tao sovereign before. Just as Xiaohua was stunned, the Tao ancestor raised his right hand and pointed at the Tao seed. Rumble. Thousands of inexplicable thunder sounds came from the void, and the profound mysteries of heaven and earth were born and fell into the Tao seed. The entire world was distorted by the profound mysteries. Then the Tao ancestor flicked his middle finger, and the Tao seed streaked across space and time. The seed that seemed to be bigger than the sky turned into the size of a thumb, and fell toward Xiaohua's head. It was exactly the same as when the Tao sovereign's Tao seed fell. Moreover, as the light and shadow of the seed fell, Xiaohua's physical body also began to fade and melt in this light and shadow, and finally turned into an existence of lines. However, it was slightly different from the last time the Tao seed fell. At this time, in Xiaohua's lower dantian, the scattered nascent soul that had already obtained the Tao seed did not turn into lines. Instead, the scattered nascent soul's figure became more and more plump, and it became more and more spirited. Moreover, when the light and shadow of the Tao seed fell into the scattered nascent soul's body, another purple light brought along the light and shadow of the other Tao seed to contend with the light and shadow of the Tao seed. Not good. Seeing this, Xiaohua was shocked. Could it be that these 2 Tao seeds are not of the same origin? They can't be fused together? However, just as this thought appeared in Xiaohua's mind, Xiaohua was even more stunned, and an extremely bad idea appeared in his mind. Previously, this Xiao said that other people's hearts are not content, like a snake trying to swallow an elephant, but this Xiao is really not content, right? For ordinary cultivators, no, ordinary immortals, to obtain a Tao seed is already an unparalleled immortal fate. Previously, when this Xiao obtained a Tao seed, my scattered nascent soul almost collapsed and could not survive. If there is another Tao seed, how can this Xiao's scattered nascent soul bear it? Needless to say, these 2 Tao seeds don't seem to be able to fuse together. If they are placed in the same scattered nascent soul, won't my scattered nascent soul immediately collapse? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, collect, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 49-53. But if the scattered nascent souls can't do it, which of the other 100 or so scattered nascent souls can succeed? Xiaohua hurriedly looked at the other scattered nascent souls. However, these scattered nascent souls were surrounded by purple light. They formed a capital heaven star formation with the starry sky scattered nascent souls, to protect the Taoist seed bestowed by the Taoist master. How could they bear the Taoist seed of the Taoist ancestor? Taoist ancestor, Taoist ancestor. Xiao Hua felt bitter in his heart. If he could speak, he would have cried, "You don't have to be so nice to me, do you?" Unfortunately, the Taoist ancestor couldn't hear Xiao Hua's thoughts. The Taoist seed still fell. When 3,000 folds appeared on the seed, the bodies of Xiao Hua and his doppelgangers that hadn't fully recovered condensed again. The capital heaven star formation formed by the starry sky scattered nascent souls, and the hundreds of scattered nascent souls, showed signs of collapse. Damn it! Xiao Hua was anxious. Taoist ancestor, you're not being nice to me, you're killing me. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua was suddenly startled and came to a realization. Damn it, this Xiao understands now. Previously, I gave the spirit root selection method and part of the nascent soul cultivation method to the Chan He sect. The Chan He sect sent it to the Tao Alliance through the fallen celestial sect. The Tao Alliance then issued an order that all the sects under the Tao Alliance must use their spirit roots to select their disciples and cultivate using the spirit root cultivation method. The Taoist Alliance is a Taoist sect disciple who cultivates the nascent soul. Therefore, the Taoist master appeared and thanked me for saving the Taoist Alliance with the Taoist seed of the Taoist sect. A few months ago, I brought the spiritual root selection method to the Heavenly Alliance. Even before I arrived, Banished King also sent the spiritual root selection method to the Heavenly Alliance. In Tong Lake City, I even publicized the primordial spirit cultivation method to the public and asked Kong Jing, Banished King and others to bring it to the Heavenly Alliance. Presumably, the Heavenly Alliance did the same as the Tao Alliance and distributed these cultivation methods to the various sects so that the members of the Heavenly Alliance could cultivate these cultivation methods. Therefore, I also have the merit of saving the Heavenly Alliance. Now the Tao ancestor is here and also bestowed the Tao seed. This means that the Tao ancestor is the Tao ancestor who created the cultivation method of the primordial spirit. The Tao Venerable is the Tao Venerable who created the cultivation method of the nascent soul. Of course, I didn't obtain the Tao seed of the Tao sovereign, so my nascent soul cultivation method wasn't completely modified. After obtaining the Tao seed, I can cultivate with ease. Now, if I obtain the Tao seed of the Tao ancestor, the last 3 realms of the primordial spirit cultivation method will definitely be completed. It's just, how should this Xiao accept this Tao ancestor's Tao seed? My starry sky scattered nascent soul is a nascent soul. It is naturally unable to accept the Tao seed of a Tao ancestor. However, apart from the nascent soul, my Tao sect avatar also has a primordial spirit avatar. The Thunderbolt Immortal is a primordial spirit. Although he started cultivating the nascent soul cultivation method, he couldn't condense a nascent soul, and had been cultivating according to the scattered soul cultivation method. After he went to the upper world and obtained the primordial spirit cultivation method, he has been cultivating according to the primordial spirit cultivation method. It can be said that he is truly a cultivator, who cultivates the primordial spirit. If he can't obtain the Tao seed of the Tao ancestor, who can? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua hurriedly tried to wake the Thunderbolt Immortal up. To his surprise, just as his mind touched the Thunderbolt Immortal, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly swelled up. At the same time, his whole body began to tremble. Something strange happened. The Tao seed that was supposed to fall toward the dispersing nascent soul suddenly shone brightly, and began to vibrate. As it buzzed, a strange fragrance seeped out of the Tao seed. The entire Tao seed began to expand as it vibrated. Halos burst out of the Tao seed like they were breaking out of a cocoon. They also seemed to be blooming as they flashed out of the Tao seed. The halos that rushed out of the Tao seed did not dissipate. Instead, they condensed into rings, clouds, and granules that scattered around the Tao seed. Everything was exactly the same as the Tao seed of the previous Tao sovereign. Seeing this, Xiao Hua was relieved and quietly watched with his mind. As the fragrance came out, Xiao Hua's scattered soul gradually fell under the Thunderbolt Immortal's body. The Thunderbolt Immortal's body grew bigger and bigger. Strange runes appeared around his body. After each rune appeared, they condensed into a vortex and the fragrance fell into these vortexes. Seeing the Dao seed slowly touching the top of the Thunderbolt Immortal's head, Dao Ancestor finally spat out a word. Good. His voice was different from before. It was filled with joy and relief. Just like before, Dao Ancestor's body shattered rapidly. In just a flash, it turned into billions of dust and rushed into the Dao seed. At the same time, the Dao seed fell into the top of the Thunderbolt Immortal's head. Boom. The Thunderbolt Immortal's body shattered instantly, turning into billions of fragments of principles. The Dao seed slowly fell among these fragments. When the Dao seed stopped, the splendor flickered, and all the fragments began to recombine and condense again. In just a moment, the Thunderbolt Immortal's perfect body was revealed. Boom! A heavy pressure that was both familiar and strange rushed into Xiaohua's mind from the Thunderbolt Immortal's perception. Thousands of complicated understandings also savagely trampled on Xiaohua's Dao heart like a tsunami. At the same time, whether it was Taoist Wu, Reverend Yun Celestial, Feng Wu, Huangtong, or all the other clones, they had all woken up. They each displayed their bodies of the principles of power, and congratulated Xiaohua. Xiaohua was about to speak when he saw that the thunderbolts did not disappear from the spot where Dao Ancestor had disappeared. Instead, layers of tribulation clouds and waves of heaven and earth majesty were rapidly condensing. Xiaohua was shocked and cried out. Fellow Taoists quickly used the immortal talismans. Fortunately, Dao Ancestor had disappeared, and the confinement of heaven and earth was gradually disappearing. Xiaohua was in the center of the confinement, and with his strength of 10th tier Yuan Qi, he was able to resist the confinement. When his clones forcefully stuck the immortal talismans given by Su Ji, the tribulation clouds in the sky stopped expanding. However, the tribulation clouds did not dissipate immediately. Instead, they disappeared very slowly. Obviously, the immortal talismans could no longer completely conceal Xiaohua's strength. Xiaohua did not have the time to think about the heaven tribulation. He hastily sat down cross-legged and focused his mind on Lightning Reverend, trying his best to help him absorb the enlightenment of the Dao seed and maintain the expansion of his Dao heart. Similarly, an unknown amount of time passed. It seemed to be 1,000 years, but it also seemed to be 10,000 years. When Xiaohua still hadn't opened his eyes, Bai Juanfeng's voice rang in his ears again. Many thanks for Senior's understanding. Senior, please wait for half a day. Gao Zhuang will drive the flying shuttle to Worry-Free Manor. Xiaohua opened his eyes and looked at the flying shuttle, then at the sky and the snow-covered mountain peak below him. In front of him, Bai Fei's face was filled with disdain, and he was looking at Bai Junfeng with interest. Gao Zhuang was standing behind the shuttle, urging his magic power to drive the shuttle. Everything was the same as before. No one knew that in the blink of an eye, something had happened to Xiaohua in this time and space, something that they had never dreamed of and would never happen in their lifetime. Sigh. Xiaohua sighed and lamented in his heart. However, he said, I have been tired for the past few months. If I can find a quiet room to rest when I reach Worry-Free Manor, that would be the best. That's right, that's right. I have the same intention. Bai Fei agreed. When Bai Junfeng heard this, he was even more delighted. He nodded and said, Seniors, your request is too simple. There's no need to ask Lord Alliance Master for an alliance token. This junior can agree to your request right now. Hee, don't be in such a hurry to say it so early. Bai Fei said meaningfully. Lord Alliance Master is anxious for us to go to the Lost Lands, right? This old man has been cultivating in seclusion for several years. Lord Alliance Master, can you wait that long? Bai Junfeng was a little embarrassed, but he still forced a smile and said, Lord Alliance Master, even if you're in a hurry, you should wait until Senior is ready, right? It's too early to talk about this now. Let's talk about it when we reach Worry-Free Manor. Bai Fei stood up from the flying shuttle with his hands behind his back. He looked at the mountain peak in the distance, and an aura of disdain for the world was born. Yi Yun, who was cultivating in seclusion, opened her eyes and looked at Bai Fei with tenderness in her eyes. It was as if she was infatuated. Half a day later, the flying shuttle flew to the mountain peak as scheduled. However, not only was the mountain peak fiery red, but it was also covered with strange red plants that were as red as flames. These strange plants had a faint fragrance. In the wind, not only did the fragrance spread in all directions, but the strange plants also swayed with the wind. The entire mountain peak looked as if it was on fire. In the light of the fire, a manor with green bricks, green tiles, and white walls covered the mountain peak. From afar, it looked like a paradise. Wonderful. Bai Fei stood on the flying shuttle and looked at the picturesque scenery. The faint fragrance entered his nose and he couldn't help but clap his hands and say, "Worry-free manor, it lives up to its name. Even if you're full of worries, when you see this beautiful scenery, I'm afraid you'll have to throw away your worries." Yes, if there's a beauty by your side, then it'll be even more perfect. Xiaohua nodded and said. However, what he got was Bai Huan rolling her eyes and Yi Yun's shyness. Since Worry-Free Manor was the territory of the Defeat Valley Immortal Alliance, there were naturally guards of the manor on patrol. Before the flying shuttle could get close, there were already more than 10 Golden Core disciples wearing battle armor and standing on pythons covered in huge scales surrounding the flying shuttle. After seeing Bai Juanfeng's token and the Alliance order, he ordered a few disciples to escort them into the Worry-Free Mountain Villa. The manor had already received a message, and a disciple in charge came out to welcome them. This disciple was at the mid-stage nascent soul stage. Although they didn't know what his status was in the manor, Bai Fei and Xiaohua definitely couldn't find any fault with his etiquette. After entering the manor, the disciple in charge politely invited Bai Fei and Xiaohua to the reception table and set up a banquet. Bai Junfeng, Yu Biqiong, Yi Yun, and Gao Zhuang naturally accompanied them. During the banquet, they didn't talk about the Lost Land, nor did they talk about the teleportation tunnel. The banquet was a happy one, but when the banquet was about to end, the disciple in charge stood up and raised his wine cup. He said with a smile, "Come, I would like to propose a toast to fellow Daoist Bai and Daoist Xiao. After chatting with the two of you, I have gained some confidence in this trip. I believe that with the two of you'll definitely be able to reach the Lost Land through the teleportation tunnel. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it and give it a tip. Thank you for all forms of support." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.